know, but she doesn't pay attention to anything. We're just like clumped down. Love that.
No, short, round guy, I just had his name.
It's all right.
Anyway.
Just make up a name. It's
The
fine,
guy.
'cause I'm not gonna remember.
The guy. And so.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Picken County Board of County Commissioners work session on Tuesday, June 17th. And we're going to start our work session with a discussion about the Phillips Trailer Park Affordable Housing Update. We've got quite a bit of time scheduled for this because we have not checked in a while, and you guys have done a lot of work on moving this project forward. So we look forward to hearing about it. I will turn it over
Thanks,
to
Kelly.
our housing team.
Sure. I'm GR Fielding, the Construction and Assets Director, and I'm joined at the table by...
By Ashley Pearl, good afternoon, Resiliency and Housing Director.
And then I think John's going to have a few interjections during the presentation today.
Sure,
and then
you got
I'd
it.
also like to introduce Joe Farstad. He's with Wember, and he's our owner's representative on the project. He's been helping wrangle all of the various consultants and teams that we've put together for this design phase.
Wonderful.
There we go. Thank you. So a bit of our agenda today, how we got here, a little bit of the history on Phillips, the potential subdivision of the parcel, infrastructure update, where we're at with all of the design processes on water, wastewater, civil, all of those things. Vertical update on the architectural plans and programming for the affordable housing. Ashley's going to handle a mobile home park update, and then we'll discuss next steps. We did include up front a bit of what we were anticipating as part of the discussion. If the BoCC is prepared to move forward with the capital projects as they're proposed right now, and can staff go out and start building partnerships to fund that stack, or to fund the capital stack, excuse me. A few notes before we get started. I know the board has seen on some other projects things called rough orders of magnitude estimates. That's kind of where we're at now. We have pretty advanced plans, but not knowing exactly when projects would start or how we would package all of the projects, they're pretty ish numbers still. So how we got here. I will save the board going back to when Phillips was a man camp for, I think, Rudai Reservoir being built. But in 2016, the county started doing some due diligence on potential opportunity at Phillips. I think it was early 2018 when all of the paperwork was finally signed. There was a lot of things in our file folder in 2017, but I think it was 18 when everything was finally purchased. In 2019, a health impact assessment was completed, and that identified all of the site planning and engineering issues with the 65-acre parcel. And it identified things like the septic tanks and some of their locations, how close some of the drinking wells are to the river, floodplain issues, debris flow, those sorts of things. In 2020, the board had seen a few presentations on some potential areas to add more affordable housing to the property. In 2021, the board agreed to the general idea of what that programming was going to look like. And at that time, we started to bring on an engineering team to start looking at these infrastructure projects. In 2022, an architectural team was added to our design group, and we'd gotten direction on 73 units, which had been, I think, litigated a few times after 2022, but I think that was the first time that we had that direction. In 23, we had a few work sessions and looked at some of the final design and programming, and we got some direction on the architectural feel and the unit layouts. I think that's also when we added the one-bedroom units to some of the Riverside units and that. And through 2024, we did that design development based on that, that direction that we received. We made the adjustments to some of the architectural features. We started all of the permitting with the state of Colorado. Though there's several permits through CDPHE that you need for drinking water, a water distribution system. and the water tank, and then also for the wastewater treatment facility. Those aren't short processes. Some of them, I think the back and forths were over 18 months. And in 2024, the board saw some of the project costs and the affordability associated with this program. So where we left off, again, the tones and feels of the architecture. We looked at some of the unit layouts, estimated costs. I did add into this slide a rendering of the Phillips site as seen from State Highway 82. I think this is just about the same exact place that we looked at last time, and we updated this graphic with several features, and I'm going to pull up a bigger version. This next slide. You can see the water tower, or the water tank, I should say, which is up in this drainage. The wastewater treatment facility is down here in the lowest field. These are the kind of closest to the river units. These are the multifamily units. Up here is the hillside units. This is the hillside spur up here. And this building where the cursor is where the new water treatment facility would be in a building.
I forgot to ask, do you want to stop and prompt us to ask questions or have us?
Feel free to interject, and if we have that in a later slide, I can let you know, and we can either take that on right then and jump to that slide, or...
So is that, I'm sorry, is that tank that's sort of furthest up the hill storage before treatment, or is that fire suppression?
It's storage, and I'd have to actually look at the flow diagram. I think it goes from the well to the tank, and then tank to the treatment facility.
Okay.
And the sizing of the tank is dictated by two things: the number of units that we have, and fire flows. The Roanoke Fork Fire District requested, I think it was 1,750 gallons per minute for 2 hours. And I know I've done the math recently, but I think that was somewhere in the order of 200-ish thousand gallons. And then the remaining storage was for what would be normal consumption. So it was like 60-something thousand gallons, so we ended up at about 280.
And that rate is for the number of units?
It's basically you take the number for firefighting, add in the number for the units that you have, and that's how you get to the sum total of what you need for storage.
But for the firefighting amount, I would assume that would change depending on the size of the property you're protecting. Is that relevant for that calculation?
It was and I don't know exactly what the code is there. It was a flow rate dictated by the fire district.
So while we're there,
Sure.
So does that mean you're building sprinklered units?
I believe the lower units are sprinklered. I don't know if the upper units are, to be honest with you, Jeffrey. I know that we have put in all of the fire truck turnarounds, and we do have hydrants on the plan set as it sits right now. Do you remember?
Yeah, anything with the
And if you're gonna, we
Yeah,
welcome
sorry.
you up to the table.
So
if you would
anything
like.
with the shared wall will probably be sprinkled. So yeah, Joe, you can come on up.
A code question. Do we now require sprinkling for all square footage or?
Is your mic on?
Well, it was 5,000 square feet or bigger? I don't remember what we finally ended up
I don't know the
with.
exact off the top of my head, but in single family, there's a square footage threshold, and then there's a requirement around shared walls, like townhomes,
Okay.
condos, that sort of
So
thing.
that's why I was.
But I don't know the exact,
Okay.
yeah.
Anything else while we're on the rendering on the fire storage or fire suppression? We can bring back and like specifics on that stuff. One of the things that has been discussed in previous board sessions is the idea of some other use on the property. And so one of the things that we looked at is if we were to subdivide based on the uses that we've discussed so far, we would have basically the mobile home park. So in orange, you have what is kind of outlines the existing mobile home park and where the relocation area would be. The pink or the blue is where the new build is all located. Pink parcels are utility, so the debris flow area, water tank, water treatment facility, and wastewater treatment facility are all in the pink portions. And then the green is, you know, some other public use that can be dictated in the future. The subdivision potential, though, we did identify those 4 uses. The white stripe that goes across this is the Rio Grande's right-of-way. And so there's a lot of different ways to do the subdivision. We could kind of keep some of those areas together with a parcel that straddles it, or they can be separate parcels. I think we have 10 descriptions up here, but we could knock that down or divvy it up even more if we needed to. We're not looking for necessarily a decision on this today. We just wanted to bring back what the latest look was on that subdivision. Is there any questions on this one?
Is there a real site plan?
Underneath.
Specifically, what I'm looking for is scientifically, the structure separation distance is really where I'm going, but what's the community values and privacy that you get when you're doubling density is really where I'm headed. So great bubble diagram, but where's the comfort and living quality given the doubling in density?
Are
So-
you thinking about that with regard to the new build as well as the existing mobile home park?
So it's a health safety question, which is you're doubling density on a fairly small acreage within this. So it's acoustic separation, it's fire separation. If this was a scientific conversation, yeah, I'm worried about increasing density in a small area. And what's called SSD is structure separation distance that looks at the distance between homes. So if we do have a conflagration on a hillside, what's the likelihood you take out more than one property owner? So, and this doesn't tell us anything. This is kind of like a zoning map.
It would be similar to something like a zoning map. The intent here, Jeffrey, was really to talk about the separation of potential uses on that 65-acre parcel.
So I was looking to see if you're drilling down from here.
On this particular topic, I wasn't planning to.
So, Jeffrey, if you're looking for the layout of the units on the parcels, yeah, that will come
Yes,
in a
that
future
will
slide.
come.
Yeah, and I think
Okay.
that's what you're
I'll
looking
wait.
for. What this is the board had had directed that staff subdivide the parcels according to different uses. The uses that would go towards housing, we ended up including the uses that would go in for the public utilities, and then the uses that would still be in public ownership. Some of those could be peeled off for future sale to open space or healthy rivers or streams or that sort of thing. But we had to create parcels so that those lands could be managed differently. And it also separated out the mobile home park from the stick built, so that those could be both managed separately, and we could construct different partnerships around those.
And that's been really important for, I think, internal planning efforts. For a long time, I think we thought of this 60-acre parcel as just one thing, and we called it Phillips. But over the last years, we've been able to dive in. A mobile home park is very different than building new stick-built units, is very different than this new utility system, is very different than something that might be for sale for conservation. And we were thinking of them kind of as all one, and it was hard from a project planning statement. So it's been helpful to say, no, this is actually 4, if not more, really distinct things that we're dealing with. So this is obviously not what it will look like when you all are said and done with it, but we just want to kind of, today is the purpose is to say, we haven't seen you in a number of months. We wanted to give you a quick update on kind of all the work that's been done. So this is a quick update on, we're thinking subdivision, 4, if not more parcels, Just trying to give you a picture of like this is how we will tee up a future conversation where we go a lot deeper into this particular slide.
Looks like an easement outline.
There, sorry, just to build off that, this is something that I literally colored over top of this subdivision exemption plat that was drafted, and so, and the easement or right of way is actually on here, so that's.
Greg, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just thinking, so the public use areas, when I first saw that, really, you're not talking about creating a public space up above the park. This is just public land that could be parceled off to open space or something else, but not necessarily public access. Because some of it along proximate to the river, proximate to the Rio Grande Trail would be ideal public access sort of stuff, while the stuff above clearly wouldn't. But we're not going there yet. I understand that now.
Yeah. And so, again, to build off what Ashley said, as the projects can move forward, we can take them as very specific areas within the property as a whole. All right, we have gotten a lot of work done with the utility infrastructure. Wastewater treatment is at about a 90% design right now. We did a new order of magnitude estimate on that, and that came out to about $4.9 million. It's up just I think a few percent from the last time that we updated the board on this. The water treatment plant is also similarly right around 90%, and that is at about $2 million. That water storage tank that we discussed earlier is estimated to be about 1.9 million, and to do work on the wells and replace them is approximately $1 million. We'll go through each one of those a little bit more specifically. On the pictures that you see on the screen, the upper one is part of the wastewater treatment system that we have spec'd out for the project. And I will highlight that a little bit later, but it's a kind of a continuous flow of the wastewater through filtrate, and it's where the bugs grow, essentially, that digest all that. And then the bottom is a kind of a vertical cut of the water treatment facility. So for wastewater treatment, the Aqua Point BioClear plant is what was finally selected. I know the board had seen at one point in time algae wheel. We moved away from that as we didn't have as much participation, some of the design from the manufacturer. But I think the last work session that we had, we did update with this BioClear plant. It is at 90% design. We do have all of our permitting is done through CDPHE for this. In fact, staff right now has to submit monthly effluent reports to the state, even though it's not constructed yet. So this is pretty ready to go. Again, that rough order of magnitude is about $4.9 million. Next steps on this are to identify the funding, get through any entitlements, which on these types of projects tend to be location and extents, put together the big package and hire a contractor.
Just a clarity on identify funding. We are currently budgeting for all of the utility work that you'll see in today's presentation out of existing county budget, so a combination of property tax dollars and potentially employee housing impact fees. The board heard about that a couple weeks ago, that we have tracked down every grant we possibly can, and then they all disappeared. So a lot of funding opportunities that we thought were going to come in from the state or the feds, we're not relying on any of those, and so we are holding, I believe it's a $13 million budget for 2026 and 2027 to fund all the things you'll see here today, knowing that when we go to vertical construction, it'll be very different. But just as we go through these, just know that we're accounting for that on the back end, on the budgeting side. Thanks.
And speaking of the funding of these things, recently the traditional funding pools where you could get grants and loans Some of them have been reduced up to, I think it was 86% on one of the memos that we got. So it is a bit of a tighter space to try to secure funding. That being said, staff is still working on a lot of different areas. The state revolving fund, we have grant application or eligibility surveys due on June 30th, and so we have that filled out right now and ready to be submitted. The image that's up here kind of shows that whole wastewater treatment area, including the building and all 5 pieces of buried infrastructure that are in that field. To get an idea of what that would look like, on the BioClear website, they have a couple sample projects. On the upper left is kind of the type of configuration that we have. Below that is an installation at a subdivision. I'm not sure exactly where that is, but it does show kind of those, the relief, and you can see it down here on the bottom right as well, of some of the units. These are the filters and how much, they don't stick out of the ground very far. You can see how far they're buried in this upper right-hand picture. Those are the units like we just saw the people's kind of feet standing next to where the filtration is. The tanks in the background are an equalization tank and a primary tank, so that's where the effluent would come into. Goes through that, goes into the building. There's ultraviolet treatment in the building, and it can, if it needs to be, it can be like a circular process to get all the processing done that needs to happen.
I don't know a lot about wastewater treatment plants. Is this cutting edge?
Yes and no. Wastewater treatment is you're growing various critters like little bacteria and things like that, and that's been done in various different ways for decades. And what you just see is totally different types of packaging for those types of units. One of the things that we did ask our designers to be very sensitive on is like odors and odor control and things like that. This isn't this is pretty recent as far as technology, but it's not like it's not tried and true of what you're actually doing.
Mm-hmm. Are those tanks weather resistant in cold weather?
Yes, all of this is kind of accounted for through design. On the upper right, I know that there's sometimes concern with burying things in the lower field. Those concrete blocks that you see below the green tanks are Deadman. They're there to be very big weights, and the same thing happens with the equalization tank and the primary tanks as well.
Can I? Expandability, is it then possible just to, I don't know if our site is so constrained, but to add if you were to develop more units in the future?
Yes, and all of these things tend to be fairly modular. There is a pretty long process to go through with the state for the permitting and things like that. To do so, whenever they design something like this, tends to be some headroom in there, so it would depend on how much that delta would be.
Great, thank you.
All right, water treatment. Water treatment's a very similar place. It's about 90% design. Cost is about $2 million. Next steps are all very similar. And in fact, when we get through some of this infrastructure stuff, if the board wanted to move forward, we would propose actually bundling a lot of these types of projects together, because you get a lot of economies in scale when we go through water, wastewater, sewer lines, and things like that. The image that you see on the right is the water line as it would go from the water tank and the water treatment facility. You can also see on here, there's one of the wells is right next to the water treatment facility. Water tank, again, 90% design. This has all gone through CDPHE for for its permitting. The BDR, as they call it, has been signed off on. There's a PDR and a BDR, and I'm totally blanking on what the acronym is, and it's somewhere in my notes, but I'm not going to dig. The tank that we have designed right now would be similar to this as a concrete construction, where you could partially bury a lot of that and try to kind of shield it as far as a view plane standpoint. Again, next steps would be identify funding, entitlements, bid packages, hiring contractors, and for these we do need operators as well.
What are entitlements relative to that?
All of this would be under location and extents as it sits right now. Water wells, this graphic you can see both. The water well that's here, and then there's one, where is it? Right down the bottom right hand of that, that is located right near where the ranch house sits today. And so we would kind of reconstruct those wells to make sure that they had some longevity. The last time I was before you on this topic, we had just finished a well yield study, and we're pretty happy with what those wells were yielding at the time. And the notes from that were like, oh, you should consider reconstructing the infrastructure for the wells if you're going to touch them. So, civil work. Civil work lags a little bit behind the rest of the infrastructure, and that's by design, because you don't want to design all of the civil work and then, move a building like the wastewater treatment facility of water a few feet, and then you kind of have to redo that whole area. So I did like this graphic because it shows in context, it's not the whole parcel. It's just kind of the highlight of what we're looking at with the new build area and the utilities, but where those areas of disturbance really are. Obviously, we've talked about the water tank. In the past, we have talked about some of the swales that will need to be built for the hazard mitigation and debris flow, and so you can see this one on the upper right here. You can see all of the various different cuts. Down here is the wastewater treatment facility. We have these units that are the closest to the river, near where the ranch house is existing. These are the hillside units. Jeffrey, I will have a different graphic that kind of calls out the buildings here in a moment. You can, again, see that area of total disturbance for the project.
So just checking in with you guys. The first slide showed you at 9.8. With this slide, you're now at close to 15. Sorry, million.
And it really depends on how you package everything. And
Just doing a gut check. Last week we were
yeah.
at 13. This week we're at 15. I'm just chiming in
The
and saying.
Yeah.
13 number is only what we've been calling utilities. I think the civil work,
this adds in roads and some of that.
part of it is like associated with new build. So we're still trying to figure out how we break it up, because
The
some of
walk-around
this could
number is
be
like
in.
14.4 right now, based on what you guys just showed.
Yeah,
between
and
your
I think-
earlier financials and then add civil.
Right, and basically what happens, Jeffrey, is as we put together a lot of these packages, we don't know how we're going to put together the whole bid package, right? I will say that for water, wastewater, and civil work, what you can expect is in the order of magnitude of 15 million. Some of the other ways to break it out is which parcel would be what percentage and all of those sorts of things. But really, we would need to get the direction on a lot of this to be able to start contemplating the best way, best bang for the buck on getting some of that done.
Thank you.
This might get a little bit more towards what you were asking for earlier. I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the question then. But you see the letters kind of denote the different types of buildings. So we've got on this A through H as different building types. H is kind of a single of the E units. We can see based on the board's previous direction, on the lower portion of the sheet, we have our A and B buildings, which are higher density. They have 1 to 3 bedroom units. They're more condominium style. The C units are more a townhome. The D, E are duplexes, and the F and G's are kind of lined out as more of a single family type of style.
So, and your dashed are just your floodplain, but your blue and yellow lines? Are we actually,
So there is, I think the dark blue is supposed to be the setback
from the river or from the road?
from the river.
So you think the Bs and the As at the bottom are actually conforming?
That's, yeah, that was the intent, was to have them outside of that setback area.
Is this your first meeting on Phillips? I can't remember. I'm just wondering, Jeffrey, because I think for me, I'm like, I want to give all the time, and I just wasn't sure.
We can keep
if we-
moving.
No, that wasn't meaning to be condescending if that came across that way. I'm just truly trying to situate, because we've been sitting in these conversations for like 5 years, and I'm just sort of dawning on
My
me that I'm like,
question
this
is
is
really-
your first review of all of this, and I want to make sure we take all the time we need.
And my question
for
is
it.
really going towards, is this ready for location and extent? So
Okay.
that's what I'm,
Sorry, and again, I didn't, if that sounded condescending, that was never my intent. I just am like, oh, this was your first time hearing this. Okay, thank you, sorry, go ahead.
I'd say on the architectural side, we are about 70% design. We do have a DD set of plans. We have not hired on a contractor. It would probably be a good one to do a VE exercise with a contractor on a project like this. And we have not produced the construction drawings yet. So, and knowing that there may be changes to some of the stuff in the future, we're calling this about 70%.
Can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the relocation area, that's for moving the floodplain unit numbers over to the hillside, correct?
Yes, and so that would be I think there's 9 existing units in the floodplain on Riverside right now. And then there's also 2 units that would need to be moved due to debris flow.
Plus
So
3
it's, but it's
existing
not,
cabins on Riverside.
I was including
Okay.
that in that total number, yeah.
but the relocation area is kind of just a block, a
Yeah,
reserved space of sorts.
Yeah, it's a reserved space, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the mobile
Okay.
home park update.
That's okay, just,
But I will say up front, that is something that we haven't gotten direction on the programming yet for,
Okay.
because we don't know exactly how to program it.
what can move, what can't, and where it should, where it shouldn't. Okay,
Exactly.
great, thanks.
I do want to maybe, as we sort of get into this, one of the questions that raises for me is if we're going to talk about partnering with someone else to potentially deliver these, what is the fixed nature of these designs? How flexible should we anticipate being relative to what a partner might want to see instead? And I don't know if we have to talk about right this second, but I think it's
No,
something
but
we
that's-
should talk
that's-
about.
Right now, it would cost additional money to go back and redesign. We have been socializing this with partners, and I think this is, we wanted to get through this to see if, this is, a project that the board is supporting moving forward to get into the next step of the process, like we're doing with some of our other partners, to develop letters of intent. But I think where we would be going is, this is what we have right now. Building on the hillsides and such, we have pretty limited footprints, right, that we can put on there. And so I think it would be more aesthetic changes than like layout or unit mix changes that are possible right now, just because of not geography or geology,
Topography.
what's the right word? Something in
Topography.
between those.
Topography.
Topography, thank you, because of the topography of the site. And so I don't think we're going to have a lot of difficulty with finding partners, even with this arrangement, though, based on socializing we've been doing.
Thank you.
So, and I believe it was the last work session, we went through several of the units. We got some direction to add some one-bedrooms. As it falls out now, I think we have everywhere from about 520 square feet to 1,600-ish square feet as the size of the different units. Again, the building A's are very close to each other, just above the river. They house a couple of the one bedrooms and two bedrooms. B has 2 and 3 bedrooms. Here's some of the unit B. I might have just gotten that backwards. Unit B has the one bed. No, I was right. Sorry. Unit B examples. Here's some of the floor plans that we have. You can see the first floor, and then kind of below for the living area, with a 3-bedroom and a 2-bedroom next to each other, and they would share a wall. The C units, which are up on the hillside, are a little bit more of a townhome style. They sit up taller. I am going to apologize up front because I only caught this last night when I was moving some of the pictures around. The last renderings the board saw of these, we did not have sky in the background. They shouldn't render out that way. There's actually the whole hillside below this, so they don't break a ridge line or anything like that. The only way that you'd get this view is if you were like laying on the ground in front of the unit. So I apologize for that. We didn't have time to swap that out before I came today.
It was a good catch.
Yeah. Unit C, though, you can see where the shared walls are. There are a couple shared walls with some of the living space, but a lot of it, there's a staircase there in that. And so this is, if you go back to the layout on the upper left, these are the Model D units, and while they're a duplex, it's a garage that connects them, which I really liked. I thought that was a really good way to do this. We don't have that opportunity with all of the units, obviously, but when you can have that separation where it's not a shared living wall, I think, Jeffrey, this might get to your question too about acoustical separation. I wrote it down. I don't remember exactly what you used as the term, but we can see also some of those. Some of the direction that we got from the board before is if we could darken up some of the lightest colors in the palettes, and so that was done for these renderings as well.
Question, Greg?
I know, I like the sky, and now I
Yeah,
can't
it
think
was
of
a
also
cool
look
sky.
just like in a desert too. So it's all good.
This is the Model E. This is up on the road up to the hillside, just kind of below the where that water tank is and that. We have Model F. These are the single family. There is a little bit of separation between the garages, so we'll call these single families versus the duplex. And sorry, before I go to this, is there any questions or comments on the architecture and the fit and feel of those units?
I just think it's pretty basic, pretty fundamental right now. I think it gives us a sense of what can be and where we starting point. So I thank you for that.
How did you treat height limits?
All of these units were designed as there's a couple 3-story units that are built into the hillside. I don't know exactly how they would measure out, to be honest. All of the rest of the units are 2-story, Greg. So they kind of conform with all of those bits and pieces as much as we can on the site there. I don't know that we've gone through each unit and done like full analysis on height necessarily, but the intent was to meet or match the code wherever possible. One of the pieces of this that we've talked about several times, Kelly, over those 5 years that you mentioned earlier, was the estimated monthly costs. There's a lot of assumptions that go into coming up with this, and there's a lot of levers that can be pulled to move these. What we're showing here is about $957 per month average. So smaller units might have a slightly lower cost. The larger single family, I think they're 4 bedrooms as they sit right now, would be higher than this, but this is meant to show that average cost. Some of the assumptions that go back into here is a pretty modest payback on the project. It's a pretty low percentage. It assumes about $230,000 a year in operational costs and property management, and about a 20-year equipment replacement program, meaning there would be, replacement of moving parts in 20 years. But it also assumes that those buildings are going to be well maintained and there for, 70 years. And some of the lines that are servicing all of this are assumed to have a full 50+ year lifespan. That's been the general practice. It's hard to put 20 and 30-year performance together with some of the infrastructure that should outlast that.
Patty?
What about things like snow plowing and landscaping and landscape maintenance and,
We put that under the property management
Okay.
portion.
thank you.
So the average monthly HOA fee is what the column is? It's not intentionally left blank on the right-hand side?
Oh, no, that's the bottom numbers, the total. The average monthly HOA fee is kind of the header.
Yeah, I think this is missing some costs, insurance, things like that.
I think that's probably in the property management column.
Just seems low.
Yeah, it does well, they don't get a lot of snow there like I do at mine, and ours is like that much a week.
And Kelly,
Yeah.
you were right. We're trying to, at this point, capture the direct costs of capital reserves. So, what are those replacement costs going to be for the water, wastewater, the road maintenance, and capital? But we do have some soft costs still to build in.
Okay.
Kelly, I apologize. I should have worn my first rodeo hat. Trying to figure out some of these, the costs that go into that, though. There are some indirect costs that are sometimes hard to pin down. And
I mean, we have access to a lot of data relative to various HOA types of fees and costs that might help build this out further.
And again, I'll just say to John's point, there's a very, very modest payback on this. This isn't calculated probably in a way that some others would, that would try to recapture some of those costs for the actual project more directly.
So I guess I just want to understand, so this is the representation that each unit, regardless of size, would expect to pay, on top of whatever their purchase price is or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay. And this is for a 20-year horizon? Is that, like, in 20 years, you would expect the wastewater and water fee to go away?
No.
That doesn't get captured in the capital reserve bucket? Like, the replacement doesn't get captured?
I
The
can-
payoff as opposed to the pay forward? You see what I'm saying?
So that's what I'm saying with
Yeah.
the very modest payback is basically just a very small portion of what those upfront capital costs are.
And you're calling that the property cost?
The operations and that are literally just operational costs, and then built into that are like an assumed project in that 20-year horizon that says, like, the first 20 years you're gonna replace the moving parts on the wastewater treatment system.
Kelly, I think what you're getting at is some of the policy questions or assumptions. I think what you're getting at are some of the policy questions and assumptions that are embedded in these numbers. And One of those is a big one that you just called out, which is we are anticipating in these numbers that the utility infrastructure is an upfront subsidy of the county, and that the capital reserve portion is really recapturing it so that there's not a need for an ongoing subsidy, that a capital reserve gets built up for replacement. And those replacements are going to vary by year, right? A pump may last, I'm making this up, I'm looking at GR, 15 years, but the concrete portions or those tanks may last 75 years. You know, so you're always trying to average those out. Over time, there's going to have to be an escalator in these. So these are kind of current year, current dollar prices. But if the board wanted to recapture all or part of the subsidy, it's really playing with that property cost number. I think if you wanted to recapture 100% in today's dollars, it would be basically doubling that capital reserve number.
Yeah, pretty easily.
So I guess I'm just wondering, so, you know, part of the check of owner rights for $379 for wastewater, what are they paying for each month? And why is it so expensive?
So you need an operator. Those operational costs are to have a licensed individual who oversees the operations of the plant. You do have some equipment and materials that you need month over month. That person is showing up on to that space, and it is building up, as John just said, a capital fund for replacement and fixes and maintenance over that time period. So that's where that $379.
It just comes out to $330,000 a year, which really seems like a lot for maintenance of that system.
And it's, yeah, and again, there's a small portion of that is on the policy side, that is payback for the initial capital project.
Other questions?
Oh, I see the confusion, I think. So the capital reserve at 70 isn't covering the water and wastewater replacements. That's going to be other, in the case of stick-built, common elements for the stick-built. So this is an average. When we break these out amongst the stick-built and mobile home parks, it's probably going to change a little bit because you're going to have more common elements, whether it be roof or that sort of thing that's going into capital reserve on the stick-built. You will have some elements within the mobile home park that are also common elements that will have a capital reserve. But the water wastewater portions, the 379 and 242, include capital reserves for those portions. So we could break that capital reserve out differently. That's why you're seeing those costs so high on those. But it includes maintenance, operation, and capital reserves
Patty?
for those
And the
elements.
property cost is based on the acreage used just for the affordable housing or for the
No.
whole property?
So, so when we first brought, so this is going back years and years and years. When we first brought this forward with fully loaded costs, I think it was somewhere around between $1,300 and $1,600 a month. And the board direction was to get that down, to have subsidy. And so perhaps what we should do is a fully loaded, so you can see what those costs really are.
Right, but my question is very specific. The property reimbursement, the property cost reimbursement.
It
for
doesn't come
purchase.
close to reimbursing a
No,
real
no, 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 no.
cost,
Is
though.
it based
Yeah.
on just the acreage, a percentage,
question.
not the whole 6 or 7 million we paid? Because my question stems from if we were to do conservation with open space and trails or and pay down that 6 or 7 million.
If we were to do the full cost, it would just be for the portion for the stick-built, the parcels. We'd use the
Thank you.
parcels, that original parcel map. I can tell you, though, if we're doing full reimbursement, it's gonna be more than this.
Yeah, that's
55,
what I'm
yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
I want it to be just for the acreage they use,
Yeah.
so it doesn't become really confusing if we were, or when we hopefully will, do the subdivision and put some to public use and then get reimbursed with those funds.
So Patty, I can tell you when I updated this spreadsheet, I think we are down at like a 10% as the purchase price in recuperating.
Based on
yeah.
that acreage.
Even if we move that to the number of acres, I haven't done that calculation yet, it would probably go up.
I don't
from
want it
that
to be
point.
for the whole parcel. I want it to be for the land that's used for the housing.
Right, and the land that will be used for housing and that, it might go up a little bit, because it's
Okay.
more than 10% of the property.
Thank you.
So that is that affordability piece in a nutshell. I know it's difficult, and there was a lot of, as John delineated, a lot of bits and pieces of that direction that's happened over time that went into the types of assumptions that we made to show that the way that it is, Kelly.
Yeah, no, it would be helpful to know that this becomes a hard sell for folks buying in the affordable housing market when their HOA fees are $1,000 a month.
And again, yeah, I would
And we've
think,
just seen that in Apsha. I mean, people forego winning lotteries with properties that have high HOAs.
And I don't disagree with that, but I just have to be thinking that with APSHA's long discussions over years and years and years about capital reserve funds, this is trying to, I think, address that issue for homeowners associations that didn't do that, and then the cost comes to you in one lump, like
Yeah,
it did at us at
like at
Smuggle.
Aspen Village.
Yeah.
Yes, thank
And
you.
depending on how you, I mean, that this would be kind of what rent would be, right? And the land cost is really, really low in there. If we were a for-profit, it would be higher. But we would probably package this a little bit differently. We've couched it as HOA because it's the services. But let's say this became a resident-owned community, okay, and they bought the parcel. You may take that property cost on, off of this, but this is going to be a real monthly expense that's going to have to be absorbed in some way. So, whether it's an HOA fee or ground rent.
And the fact that today's costs, which we know are not stable, we have to also remember that what we would have been paying 5 years or 6 years ago or has changed with what's going on with the economy of the world.
so after hearing what you all have said around this, I think how I would probably describe it in the future is our operation and maintenance budget numbers and what would need to go into that, which would typically go into the HOA fee. So it's not fully inclusive to a lot of your point. So what did we just hear? Wastewater, water, they're all at about 90% plans. The civil site work is 70%. That can come up to a bid set of plans in a matter of several weeks once we lock some of those features down. Our rough order of magnitude for that in the vertical is about 50 million. That new build that we looked at is 70% complete. We're looking at some of that next step is to start partnership and funding conversations with partners. But that is basically where that Phillips affordable housing portion sits today. Ashley, did you have anything else that you wanted to comment on this before we go into the next portion?
No.
All right.
How long has the drinking water system permitting taken you?
That was all in. It was over a year. I think we got our approval in May.
Was the delay on CDPHE side?
Yeah, it's one of those, we'll send in an update and then we'll hear back in a couple months. On the water side, was a little bit smoother. The wastewater side, I got reminded a few times when we would ask for status updates what exactly the letter of the law was for the number of days they were allowed to review. Remaining work, as the board saw, we have some work to do on the subdivision. Obviously, we just wanted to get a bit of that idea socialized today. We're continuing to work with the attorney's office on coming up with some language for a right-of-way transfer from RAFTA to the Phillips parcel. A final funding plan for that infrastructure. I think you heard Ashley say about what we can pull from budget today over the next several years. That entitlement work that we talked about would be location and extents for this property. A relocation process for the required tenants. Vertical construction partnership and funding model for those, which would probably be a little bit different than the utility. What that infrastructure maintenance and ownership model looks like, and that goes into a lot of the assumptions that are really hard to come up with those O&M type of budgets and fees that we saw earlier. And obviously, we still own a mobile home park, and that continued and ongoing touches with the BoCC.
Can I ask real quick? How
Yes.
much is it costing us per month to do water quality sampling that we have to send to the state?
You know, it is embedded into Hiram's contract for being the property manager right now. Since he has been that water provider, he's continued to do the sampling and sending that off. And so it's kind of baked into that annual contract.
Okay.
You all ready to talk about existing mobile home park or any other questions about next steps on new build and kind of future?
I just wanted to, I did have a question regarding the, you know, we own a mobile home park. We don't meet the requirements for, it sounds like perhaps there's some electrical code issues down there. There's the sewer and water system. We're working on that, right? We've got an idea now what the cost would be just to fix that. And we're looking at $10 million probably just for the water and wastewater, right? Do we have any idea if we had to, I don't know enough to know how to frame the question about being up to code for electric and all those various units. And if that's even when does that happen?
For the existing.
Electric and fire code.
All right. I think there's a couple things kind of baked in there, Greg. One, I'll say the presentation that you just saw was so that there is a critical mass to take care of all of the issues that we learned about in the health impact analysis that was done in the late teens. As far as the mobile home park, part of that is not really contemplated. Some of the numbers are in that, but a lot of that is not for management of that space and how different separations happen there and those sorts of things. As far as electrical code compliance, I think a lot of the grumblings that happen with those are from old expansions or additions that people have done. I think that has been done so far mostly by attrition, and when the issue comes up or something needs to move, then it gets taken care of.
But the infrastructure.
But the infrastructure is
Sewer and water infrastructure is part of the other.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And
correct.
There is, I think it's good that there's two of us because sometimes there's a wall between us, which I think is healthy because otherwise you can't move forward with either piece. But obviously there's a mobile home park sitting in between a whole space where we're going to new build. And even if we were not going to put any new housing there, we have a failing wastewater treatment facility and a failing water treatment facility. So we would have to replace those to maintain the mobile home park. The challenge is going to be in some ideal world where money is no object and time is no object, we could get the mobile home park in perfect alignment at the same time that we're putting in all the water, and we could do all that. We have 37 units. If we want to get perfect spacing in between all of them, we pick every single one of them up and we move them 5 to 10 feet in either direction. The cost of that is beyond anything that's comprehensible for me. So our current approach with the mobile home park is, one, figure out what we're going to do with relocation. I think that's the really big next step that we need to answer. And then two is understanding more about our tenants and those folks who live there and what opportunities the county can take advantage of in the coming years as people decide to leave. Do we not open that spot back up? So then we get a new spot, so then we get a bit of space. That's kind of that attrition model. That is what we've been doing to date. I haven't seen any mobile home park in the state that has tried to come into spacing compliance by touching every trailer. A number of them you can't touch and you can't move, so you inadvertently lose a ton of housing that you can't replace. So right now we're, one of the things I want to come back to you all with is some policy options that we could put into place over the next couple of years that would incentivize folks who might be ready to move somewhere else or might want to make some improvements to their trailer to do that sooner than later, so that we can kind of get some compliance and some more, take care of some issues through involvement with the tenants, not just us coming in and doing it. It sounds like we're ready to move on to mobile home park because we've moved there. Is that? That's
Thank you.
Thank you. So we own a mobile home park. Right now it's occupied by 34 mobile homes and a mix of travel trailers. There's also a ranch house, which is occupied by Hiram Noyes and his wife, who's the property manager. The county owns the land, and we charge $430 a month for our tenants to rent the mobile home park lots. And that includes all service, so it includes water service, wastewater and fresh water. We contract with Hiram, who's part of the Phillips family. He's been there forever. We're super thankful to have him. He knows the park inside and out, and there are lots of little corners and secrets and things that are not always standard. Our property crosses the river. There's a bridge over the river. There's some ditch management. There's some field management, as well as he's our water service operator. So he actually does all the water testing and then submits that to the state so that we're in compliance. So we're contracted on an annual contract with Hiram for property management services right now. This is the picture of the park, the map of the park that I use weekly, because it's the best we have of kind of marking who's where and what's going on. And we have this all marked up in my office of, you know, who's doing what, who's parking where, who we're in conversations with about different things. And I think it's like kind of comical, but it also shows, you know, we picked up something that's been a mobile home park for who knows how long. And we're trying to bring it into modern day. We're trying to standardize. We're trying to upgrade utilities. But we're still like, it's incremental. And over time, we will have some really big fancy map that shows us exactly where folks are at and what type of unit is there and how it's been expanded or what. But this is kind of just indicative of the times we're in. We're at this pivot point with Phillips Mobile Home Park of, it's an amazing resource. There's great tenants there who have been there for a very long time. I probably told some of you that when my dad moved here in 1969, he lived in a mobile home at Phillips Trailer Park as his first stop. So we know it's been around for a while. And, you know, slowly but surely, I think this is going to be an incremental process with the mobile home. I don't think we do anything drastic overnight. So.
Yes, Greg, go
The
ahead.
question I meant to ask previously was just about the Rio Grande right-of-way. Most likely, there are houses already in the right-of-way there, right? So the right-of-way, is it 100 feet or 200 feet wide? And what are we asking of RAFTA, and are they likely to, you know, we spend a lot of time every year at RAFTA making sure that nobody's, you know, infringing on the Rio Grande right-of-way, and I'm just wondering, what's the ask?
So the ask is that we help them solidify their right-of-way and clean it up. I don't have that parcel map in this slide deck. There's a lot of funky little triangle pieces that jot out where it goes from 100 to 180 feet or something along those lines as it crosses the Phillips parcel. So I think that the exchange is that we actually gain property for the county because it doesn't need to be the right of way through that. so long as we help them protect that right away in that, I don't know a better term for it than the rails to trails type of legislation for what they need to do to protect it.
That helps, thanks.
Go to the next slide.
Ashley, are we passing on all of our water quality testing?
We are.
That's good to know.
Let's keep it up.
I know, I'm hearing that, I guess, you know, the investigations at mobile home parks around the state are actually showing that most are in compliance, even if there's quality complaints relative to it. So I thought that was interesting to hear.
Yeah. Some updates for you all. In January, we offered and tried to move all tenants to a year-long lease. Most tenants were on a month-to-month lease previously for many years. We felt like a year-long lease, in addition to being required by the state of, the state of Colorado has tons of protections for mobile home park tenants. One of those is if you request as a tenant a year-long lease, your landlord is required to give it to you. So we did have a number of tenants reach out and say I'd like a year-long lease, so we decided to provide that stability to everybody, the administrative clarification, and just have everybody on the same lease for the same time period. We moved everybody to a year-long lease. Unfortunately, we haven't had full compliance with people signing their leases, so we are still continuing to try and get compliance on people signing leases. You know,
I mean, some people don't have a lease at all.
some people do not have a lease, which unfortunately means they're on Picken County land illegally. We have tried to talk to them about a year-long lease or a lease of any type provides stability and a relationship with us. You know, some people have been there for a really long time, and we are the government, and sometimes we're not a trusted entity. So exciting, because in January, we contracted with an organization called Social Communities. Social Communities specialists in senior housing and mobile home park housing across the state of Colorado. They are amazing at working with tenants. So they're on site once a month. They've thrown a barbecue in the park and some other things, some welcome baskets for tenants, really trying to just build that relationship with tenants. You can see in the picture there, that's Hiram on the far left. He's our property manager. Tiffany and Lee with Social Communities, and that's myself and Andrew and GR. They've been amazing. I'm really thankful for the capacity that Social Communities has brought in their approach. They have personally been able to get 8 additional leases signed over what staff was able to get signed. So I think it's a good approach. They're also giving us some property management support. Hiram does a ton, and we're trying to understand a little bit more about what is in the property management scope, what in the future the county might need to take on, or what we might want to contract out, and what kind of the future of property management might look like in the park. And then they're also helping us with relocation planning. So we talked a little bit about, Patty, you had said the relocation plan on the map right now is a rectangle and that's it. We have a certain number of requirements that the state is we have to comply with for the state on how we relocate people, what we offer them, those sorts of things. So Social Communities is kind of educating us right now on all the different options that we have as tenants, as landlords, to be able to offer to our tenants during a relocation process. Once we understand more and we have some policy considerations, we'll bring that back to you all and start to think through it.
Are there also federal requirements?
Yeah, federal and
It's
state. Yeah. Yeah, next slide.
I do wonder about that, because I feel like some of the federal obligations that we discussed in the past were relative to being eligible for federal grants.
Yeah.
Is that still a relevant conversation?
That's a
Are we still adhering to those out of principle?
The only requirements that we're looking at are state of Colorado mandated requirements, not just to get not to be points on a grant application or something. State of Colorado has some of, as you all are familiar, some of the strictest tenant protections for mobile home park tenants. So there's a lot around relocating folks. So yeah, we are operating under a grant from the state right now, though, to work with Social Communities to come up with a relocation plan. So we're thankful for some of that funding.
Patty?
I think we might want to be on the positive side of grants in the future, kind of like what we're doing at the airport, what the efforts we're taking there are to ensure that we're in compliance if in the future. So we can say we did it by the books then, even though you weren't giving out grants, but now that you are, please know that we followed these to get to where we are today.
And how long ago was it? We did a really productive project walk with a lot of potential future funding partners
Last summer.
last summer to start socializing the property, the issues that are there, for them to get a understanding of the fit and feel of that space. In a lot of that guise of, we don't know what all of the funding opportunities are going to be, but if and when.
We're going
or
to try and keep all those doors at least not quite as closed as tight.
Yeah, and that's, again, as the board noted, the block for the relocation area, there's a lot of different options for programming in that space, but we wanted to get through that before we have that conversation and finalize that piece of the property.
Thank you.
A couple updates. I think the board was aware because we came for supplemental funding, but we did have a pretty big lesson learned. So there are some retaining wall issues at Phillips that we're aware of. We addressed one last, I was going to say fall, but clearly by this picture it became winter pretty quickly. That required us to move a mobile home out of the space, relocate it, and then get in there and fix the retaining wall. Once the fix was done, the trailer was too big for the space because the retaining wall kind of made that space much smaller. So we ended up permanently relocating the mobile home. You can see it there. It's actually on the road right now.
It's a great place for it.
Yeah, and then it was getting backed into its spot. I think GR and the assets team and Jody did an incredible job. Tons of lessons learned here. This project came in around $400,000 to both pull the trailer, ready a new pad for the trailer, pay for all those expenses, and then repair the retaining wall.
Do you know how much just the relocation costs were?
They came in,
Separate from
legally we have to pay for moving expenses and things like that. So I think it was around 70,000.
Of all of the lessons that we learned, it's a production. There's a lot of moving parts. There was a mobile home here, and we learned, as we were preparing the pad, that it needed all new utility connections because the old ones just they weren't in a state of condition that we could really rehook up to it. And so then, as soon as you touch those, you chase an issue a little bit. The retaining walls that we had to build for the new site. That was a whole project. That would have been a normal, whole project in of itself. And so Jody worked on this, kind of full time for a small period of that time period, and it was a full on production.
That was that place that was condemned, that we moved out.
No,
That was another one.
that was a different one we did a couple years ago. This was a great trailer's in great shape.
No, I mean the lot where you moved it to.
Oh,
The resident had unfortunately passed away.
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah, and then the trailer wasn't in a condition, I think, where the county was comfortable with just moving someone in or selling it.
I went down
because
and
the family
checked it
didn't
out.
necessarily want to keep ownership of it, so we demolished the trailer that was there.
Right, that's the same spot.
And again, one of the lessons that we learned was while we had a trailer there previously, the lot was not kind of standard. And there was a small trailer, and it had a series of sheds on it that fit around the topography. Well, when you move in one of the longest trailers that you have in the entire mobile home park into that spot, that was a game of Tetris that didn't quite work until we moved the hillside a little bit.
so unfortunately, there's a couple more places where retaining wall construction fixing is still going to be needed. Nothing, knock on wood, as pressing as that was, but we are budgeting for that in future years, and we'll take kind of the lessons learned. Some of the mobile homes that are in those spots are not going to be as readily movable. So again, we'll come back to the board with some policy conversations, but just as a heads up, retaining walls, no small thing. Just so you all know, I think you heard about this in supplemental a couple weeks ago, but right now, none of the we don't provide trash pickup to the residents. Some residents take their trash up to the landfill themselves. Some contract individually for waste service pickup in front of their mobile home. So we do provide a spring cleanup for residents every May. So we have a huge roll-off dumpster out there for 3 to 4 weeks. We collect recycling, we collect metal and scraps and chemicals and electronics and the whole bit. We've done that for the last 3 or 4 years. But thanks to that grant from the Parks and Wildlife, I believe it's the bear human thing, we're working on putting a permanent trash enclosure that'll be ready at the end of the summer. So it won't be for Riverside residents. It will only be on the hillside. And we're making it still bear compliant so that bears can't push it around, but such that we can pick it up and move it to another site if needed during all the things that are going to be happening over the next couple of years.
Good idea.
Yeah, and thanks to Joe's team for helping us design that and think through all the options on how to make it most usable and movable and all those sorts of things.
Makes great sense.
I believe that's it on the mobile home park for now.
Oh.
Other
What's
questions?
next?
Run away.
Yeah, this is our last slide.
Isn't there something about this, Kelly, can I ask, that if you started with this project, you have to stay with it until its completion? I guess
I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that clause.
I didn't sign that contract.
wishful thinking on my part, maybe.
So we had 2 questions that GR shared with you at the beginning. So we're wondering, first and foremost, are you kind of, after hearing this, I know there were lots of questions and we still need to come back with you for some details, but moving forward in a general sense with the capital projects as proposed. So that's the water tank, the wastewater treatment facility, the water treatment facility, the utility projects as we're proposing them. You know, we're at 90% design, so those next steps are going to bring it pretty close to, you know, hard to change at that point. So kind of curious if you all are comfortable moving the direction we've been moving. And then, like John said, we've been socializing the concept of the new build with some key partners in the community. It's been really favorable responses so far. I think there's a lot of interest in the types of units we're building as being a little bit more family friendly, maybe meeting a different profile than some of the other housing that we're seeing coming up recently, having multiple bedrooms, having a garage, having some storage space, those sorts of things. So we're curious if we could kind of continue those partnership conversations to understand how we might build out a funding stack or a capital stack. And then, of course, we'd bring those back, letters of interest from partners and those sorts of proposals. But we've just had initial kind of socializing conversations. And then the next step would be to show them some of the designs and a little bit more. But John, I don't know if you want to frame these up better.
No,
Can I actually jump in? But sorry, before we dive into this, I have a question on the mobile home park stuff that I think just let's take care of it and then we'll move off of that. What are the relocation discussions relative to the Riverside properties?
So every tenant who lives at Riverside has known for 4 years that they're in a floodplain and they will have to, that water service will no longer be provided to them at some point and a relocation opportunity will be offered to them. As far as other conversations with tenants, there have been none. We're still learning on the state and federal side what exactly we're required to give tenants, what we're required to pay for, and then we would come back to you all with a couple of different proposals for kind of how you all want to handle those relocations. That's a very vague answer because we haven't gone very far.
Okay. Have there been any attrition on that side with those remaining?
Not a ton,
units?
no.
It's a question when you're looking into that, is there a legal component? If you have a tenant who, one, won't sign a lease, refuses to cooperate in that regard, how do their rights change and how do our rights change when it comes down to trying to figure out how we're going to make this place work? It just seems their rights can't go on forever if they're not cooperating. But I don't understand exactly what the situation would be. When I think about that, I also think that they're probably paying almost a third of the cost of space rent at any other mobile home park in the valley, and maybe even much less for one up here. And so it just seems like it's a, you know, it's not a practical economic situation there, and I'm concerned because when we're talking to the state about what can't we do, it's not clear. And so I know we're trying to be as generous as possible, but it also at some point you start feeling like you're being taken advantage of, and I get a sense of that. There was one other thing I wanted to bring up. I forgot what it was.
Can
but
I
that's,
just clarify?
yeah, thanks.
I think your question is different than Kelly's. Kelly's talking about relocation. You're talking about, and I do have issues with people who won't sign a lease, but I think that's separate from the relocation, unless all the
There's
people who won't sign a
relocation
lease.
from the river, right.
Yeah,
What
but I
is
don't
our
know where the
obligation?
people are that aren't signing a lease, if they're part of relocation or not at this point. But I think, for me, that's two different questions.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll
Yeah, but I
acknowledge
think
that.
we need to address them both.
The other question is, once we finish this, when we get the project built, completely built out, we're going to have some I'm going to say closer to higher end affordable housing units in the new stick built, and it's surrounding the lower end section, where the expectation is that they pay a third of the cost of the actual market rate for something. How are we going to balance the subsidies? You know, because it just seems like we are subsidizing what's happening there today to a huge extent. I'm going to venture to say almost unrealistically compared to the rest of the affordable and mobile home market. And we're going to build a new thing around it. How is the expectation between the neighbors going to work?
So great, yeah. No, I mean, I think we're going to look at it on a roughly per bedroom basis. Now, for the mobile home park, that's going to be an estimate because that's going to be different. We will have exact numbers for the stick built. We also will have really good numbers because we're dividing them between separate parcels of the actual cost. So that would be for the water, wastewater, so that there's some, we don't want subsidies to be provided, either from stick built to mobile home or vice versa. So we had proposed initially setting it up that way, and for the water, wastewater usage, base it on bedrooms, because that's generally most closely related to water and wastewater use. On the roads and other infrastructure, because we are dividing the mobile home park and stick built into different parcels, we're going to have a pretty good sense at the end of the day what those actual costs are. I think the board will have a policy decision coming up about whether the board wants to provide any ongoing subsidy. We kind of got into that when we're talking about the HOA, and we've assumed some of that already, and where that would be best placed. But you don't have to make that decision yet. But I think we'll have rational basis, to divide up those responsibilities, and then from there it's a policy decision the board.
I mean, another thing I just would like to flag, I know you've asked several questions, so I want us to get to them too, but, there is additionally an inequity in establishing a condominiumized portion of the property who is gaining equity in their building on the land versus the mobile homes, which are not. Their equity is in a building that has a reducing Yeah, depreciating value.
Oh, no, mine just went up, so you know
I know,
that's
but
not-
yours is in a completely different,
No, but I have a
because you own the land under it.
I know, but I have a trailer, it's taxed separately, and it just went up in value with that, so it's changing a little bit, I just want you to know that.
Okay, I think that may very well be an anomaly, but, you know, the point is that the folks in the condominiumized have an equity built in the stake of where their property is, whereas we haven't had that conversation relative to, like subdividing the land underneath the mobile homes. And so there's, you know, there's just a lot of interesting dynamics, I think, to keep in mind with all of that as well.
And that's very much on our next steps. You know, today was intended to talk about the infrastructure and the new build. We have a longer list of next steps for mobile home park, and that's very much on there is what is the eventual model for the mobile home park. You all have collectively become more aware of the Rock model recently. Just so you know, Thistle Rock did give us an assessment on Phillips a couple years ago and said at current rents, they're not eligible to be a Rock because the rents are too low and that bump would be too significant that they could never pay back any sort of loan. That even if we gave them the property, if they were to access infrastructure loans in the future, at those low rents, they're not eligible. There are many other models that we'll bring to you to consider future mobile home park. For the foreseeable future, just to manage expectations, because I know we're in a public meeting, I think that the county should plan on owning and managing the mobile home park for the foreseeable future while we understand the other structures at play here with utilities and the partnerships for the stick build. And then I think we'll understand more. But Kelly, I think about that a lot is we're building two very different communities, but it's one community. And how are we going to do that? So plan to come back to you all with lots of policy discussions and models and things like that. For the now, the board controls the rent that we charge. So to Greg's previous point of, you know, whatever you think of rent, you last raised rent prior to me joining the county. So that was over 3.5 years ago. I know that was a really challenging conversation. You raised it from $400 to $430 a month. That's at your sole discretion. So when we looked at GR's little spreadsheet there of operation and maintenance fees, those do not include a lot rent fee for the mobile homes. So that will be, as long as the county owns the land, at the board's discretion on what you set that at, knowing what else they're paying into these capital and maintenance fees. So all of that to come. I don't expect us to answer any of that today, but know that that's something that I think at least weighs heavily on me as we're mixing communities and we need to do that really intentionally.
So, Kelly, you
Yeah.
raised a question for me. So the new stick built, because you said, you know, the mobile homes don't own the land. So will we be then subdividing so they can, how are we gonna set up the land ownership under the new stick builds?
That depends on how the project progresses, I think. There's a lot of different options there.
Especially if we have partners, because that would be a subdivision off. So I didn't see that in the pink strip. So
No.
that's a further discussion. We don't need
That
it, but
could
that's
be
a
a further
good question
discussion.
that I never even really thought about, is that they're gonna own their new townhouse, but we're gonna own the land underneath it still.
That
Right.
is a very possible
Yeah,
outcome,
okay.
a condominiumization type of opportunity, and then a shared ownership.
Yeah, okay. That's,
But to point out the disparity on that further, you know, so you have someone's paying for their mortgage on their condo. They're not paying Picken County a lot rent, and they
Yeah.
are paying an HOA. Whereas on the mobile home park side, they're paying maybe a mortgage on their home at this point, but ostensibly a mortgage on a unit and lot rent and the HOA.
Well,
So just
that-
maybe something to keep in mind when
yeah,
we're
that's,
distributing costs.
that's assuming, though, that as we develop partnerships, we're not including land cost and the benefit that we get back from our partners.
or in somewhere in the way out future, subdividing the mobile home park and letting them buy their land at some point.
You know, and we've got, this is a future discussion. I think, you know, the way we've structured this right now would most likely, the most likely outcome, I think, would be a co-op kind of ownership model for the mobile home park.
Which is great if they build an equity in the co-op. You know, there's like
Yeah.
lots of different co-op models where you pay into it,
Yeah.
and the privilege of being there is your benefit, as opposed to a co-op that actually retains value that you can cash out on in the future. There's a lot going on in the mobile home park space. Greg, I'm sorry. Did we
No,
answer
I'm-
your?
I'm covered. It just, there's so much to this that it's pretty daunting. And I appreciate all the work you've put into it.
Jeffrey,
Good, I'm just in listening mode.
I hope that isn't in reaction to my comment before. We'd love to hear any questions and all questions you have. Okay, so we still have these discussion points on the board. Patty?
I am comfortable with both moving forward. I mean, we're already so deep in wastewater. That I was being careful in case my grandchildren are watching, which hopefully they're not, that we need to move forward with the capital projects as proposed, bringing back when you feel necessary or when we want you to come back and talk to us about it more as it moves forward. And the other is definitely, I love the word socialization of the property. That's a whole new use of the term social events. But I think we definitely need to be working on that. I mean, that's part of it.
And just to be clear at the board, what we would like to do is put these types of pictures and concepts and, you know, costs in front of our partners to generate actual letters of intent for financial partnership.
And if there's a request for the potential possible partners to come back and have a joint meeting with us, I think that would be something the board might want to entertain in the future somewhere. Social hour.
Other comments?
Specific capital
Yeah.
projects are wastewater and water
Correct. And water tank.
and water tank. Yeah, that's a huge water tank. Wow.
It is a very big water tank, and it's one of those things where when I started on the project and asked where our water storage was, right now we have one pressure tank that I'm not sure actually works. So the existing water system is on demand.
Right, yeah. Well, I think that we have to move forward with those projects because it's our obligation to maintain the safety and health of the people that are there. But I'm nervous about going beyond that because there are just so many questions. You know, but you guys are the ones trying to sell it, so to the partners, that is. So I sure, give it a shot. See what they tell you.
I guess I'm wondering what a $10 million mortgage would be for the 37 units that are there. I'm just thinking, like, if they did this themselves, you know, and we didn't do this, what would that cost be per unit to pay on their own to replace all these things?
Could I expand that question?
Yeah.
What would the cost just be to us if we handled the $10 million? How would we fund that if we didn't go farther? That's kinda what
I mean,
I'm
to be clear,
interpret-
use
I think I hear
15
what you're
million if
saying.
you're doing any math
Was
up
it
there.
15
Well,
to
because
do
that's
everything?
roads and things, right? So I was just thinking,
have
I
to
was
do.
sort of like, oh, because we have other mobile home parks, right, that are going to struggle with this stuff, or other, not even mobile home parks, just neighborhood communities in Picken County that have their own wastewater systems that they have to replace eventually. So I'm just like, what's the market cost to an individual in one of these standalone communities for this replacement? Sort of as a way to compare, you know, what are we covering and committing to covering on behalf of this preservation project versus what individuals in the community are having to plan to absorb on their own. Anyway.
What would be great is if we had the opportunity and the land to create another, like Aspen Consolidated Sand District plant, other than basalt and aspen, and hook more units up to, because we're already, have a concern of all the septic systems and the problems they all experience. So, the problem for us is that we own this one. In many ways, we own this one, and that's tough.
Anyhow,
Kelly?
Yes.
Depending on what total number you use, so if you don't do site work, the roads and stuff, you could use 11 million divided by 35 units. It's $312,000 per unit.
so that's $1,800 a month, 30-year mortgage, basically. Oh, really? At like 7%?
Yeah.
Oh.
What'd you come out with?
$2,647 a month on a 30-year note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Mine
Well,
was
that's a
big
helpful
when it
number.
hit me, but this is-
All right. I'm prepared to move forward despite all this. We're in it. Jeffrey? Let me double check if Francie sent me any questions. I think she connected with you as well.
She told me that you would have questions that she gave you, Kelly.
Oh, okay.
So while,
I know, well, she just continued to reiterate her lack of density concerns. Go ahead.
so if you're moving towards location extent, I would look towards conformance with the existing land use code, conformance with the Aspen Area Master Plan, conformance with the Down Valley Comprehensive Plan, and I'd want to hear more about traffic and implications for Lower River Road before you go back to a public hearing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Wait, you still
And-
have
oh,
like 42.
I know.
That-
Wait.
we're all in a weird space because this is my
No,
first
no,
Phillips work session that's ended early.
Well, and I feel like the longer I sit here, the more questions I come up with. What is the next steps regarding the land use planning?
Right now,
Stuff
we
for
have
us.
we have a planner that is helping us with the subdivision, but we would go out and find a planner that will look at several of the issues that Jeffrey noted and work with our community development staff to see, where that lies within location and extent, because location and extent is its own animal in the land use code.
And does all that precede any movement forward on water tanks and?
We can do a lot of things concurrently. There is some stacking of those. We do need to have entitlements done before, we want to have a contractor ready to break ground. But they're not, wait until this process is done and then start the next.
Okay. And is there a path where we, separate out the road work, say, because we're gonna sell half the property to a partner or something like that, or wait for their input on that? Okay.
My sense is if that were an option for the board, we would want to have the infrastructure and entitlements in place and also transact the property encumbered with deed restrictions that would protect our interests.
Sure. Okay, that's helpful. That helps me understand the phasing of what would fall into place. All right.
Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
We,
thank you.
Nice to meet you.
We're hoping
Thank you.
to do this in shorter order, more regularly as things progress. So
Yeah.
we'll see
Okay.
from us.
So you need to get on the road.
Do you need to get on the road? It sounds like she is in her first PT session right now. So.
She's in her first physical therapy session already?
Yeah, she'll have 2 before we come back to the valley.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Think she
All
can
right,
handle it.
folks, would you guys like to do some future agendas, maybe open discussion, and then we'll have a break before 3:15?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go ahead then. Future agendas. John Peacock, do you have any notes?
Okay, we are still working on that. I turned it off that time. Sorry about that. So, still working on logistics for September 17th, joint celebration with Eagle County.
Oh.
So we'll keep you posted as that moves forward. We got some time to figure that one out. And then, unfortunately, on July 22nd, Toclot is not available, Greg. I want you to know we tried, but we're looking at other locations, including ACES and maybe in Snowmass Village, that may provide the inspiration that you're hoping for.
I thought we were combining that, rolling right into the 2050 plan discussion.
That's correct. And so
So are
we're
we
looking
gonna have
at
to
a little
move
bit longer.
location, or are we just, I thought we would just have it all
We're
here.
all going to do it one place, yeah, one place.
So we're gonna move the 2050 discussion. See, that wouldn't really be conducive for any public who wanted to attend if we were to
That's
have it
correct.
someplace. I thought since we were doing it, stacking it into one day, we would just be easier just to do it here.
Ah.
I just assumed, I guess I assumed incorrectly.
No, we were trying to get you off-site.
I know, but I thought
yeah,
that was gonna be a special day,
Yeah.
and now it's not. It's gonna be the 2050 thing afterwards.
If it's easier to do all here, why not?
No.
Can have lunch out on the patio or something.
Yeah.
Well,
Or
that
we could do
seems
another day
boring
and
and
go to Pine Creek
uninspiring,
and
but.
have lunch.
We'll barbecue for
Another
you.
day, go to Pine Creek and have lunch.
Yeah, too expensive.
I just got invited. I know it is.
And that's all I have for you for future agendas.
Okay, thank you. All right, Patty and Francie are out next week, so I hope my colleagues to my left and right are still planning to attend 24th and 25th. We will not have an exec the morning of the 24th because of a limited board. Patty? Did you have
Yeah,
questions on those
the
days?
26th does not look like I will be back in time because my flights are I'm going all over the United States to get back here. The only way Charlotte and I could work it out, it's fine. But it's the Dolores Stutzman ribbon cutting for the bridge that I worked with Dolores on Dolores worked on me for 20 years to get that done. So I will try and, if I can, I don't know, get some comments that maybe, I don't know, if somebody who's going to be there could read into the public at that ribbon cutting. I don't know if the board, I'm hoping members of the board will be there. It's from 5 to 6 at the bridge. You can always park over by the fire station and walk the path and go underneath and up onto the bridge. So I'm hoping that the board
I was
members.
not, because I have a conflict, but Greg or Jeffrey, do either of you plan to be there?
I'm
Okay.
planning on going, yeah.
Okay, so Jeff, I'll try and send comments to Jeffrey then.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you both.
And I'll call the family ahead of time and let them know I won't be able to be there.
Alrighty.
That's all I had, Kelly.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I did want to check in with you all about July 1st. We have a hour-and-a-half meeting with CPW. We have 5 things listed on the agenda: bears at the landfill, wolf update, Beaver Lake, Sam Caudill, aquatic nuisance species. Is that the agenda we still want to forward to them, or do we want to focus it more? I think it might be I could see us getting very hung up on bears and wolves.
And maybe beavers.
And I'm happy to make sure we leave time for the other things, but I just want you all to help me prep for that
I'm
meeting.
gonna have to leave early on that day.
Okay?
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to be out of there by 3:30 probably, so I'm gonna miss the last bit.
Well, okay, you'll be there for the CPW meeting, though.
Right.
I have the Sam Caudill thing, I think will be very quick. I think it's more a matter of, are we gonna do a celebration with them for opening? I was there getting diverted, the back road the other day, Saturday, going down Valley because of that horrible incident on Highway 82. And it was so cool to see all the people using the Sam Caudill put in, take out. And everybody, I mean, there were cars parked not in the road, not stacked up, people not lined up trying to, it looked very, and it was busy. So I think that's the point of having that on that agenda, would just be, shall we plan some event to celebrate? It's pretty awesome. And then the other ones, yeah, wolves and bears. Sounds like a kid's song, haha.
I was not going to plan to invite any public comment on this as a work session and a joint meeting with CPW, given our extensive agenda, and I think it could get, I don't think we'll have time.
Yeah, to get through all those items. I just think it's
Yes.
great that we're gonna have the opportunity. And we don't know who from CPW is coming.
I don't know, do you know, John?
Not yet, but I know Matt Yamashita, I think is who we talked to.
Matt's gonna be, I can't imagine he wouldn't be here, but,
I don't know who else at this point.
okay.
And possibly anticipating presence of wildlife commissioners. What is our feeling about
CPW
there?
commissioners? I thought it was just gonna be a meeting with CPW staff. I didn't think it was gonna be a commissioner meeting, because then I'm not sure what kind of conversation we'll be able to have with staff when they're, I don't know, I was hoping it would just be CPW staff.
Other thoughts on that? I just, again,
So
want
it's
to be
not a-
able
it's
to
not a
manage
policy.
invitations and,
Yeah.
It's not a policy discussion, it's a what's actually happened discussion.
management update.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, that's a
That
useful
seems-
framing for me.
Yeah, that's what it'd be great to
Thanks-
talk
thanks
to
for
the
bringing that up,
commissioners at some
Kelly.
point also, but it seems like if this is set up as just an update on what's actually happened and
Well, the
What can they
bears at the
tell us?
landfill conversation will probably inherently be a policy conversation.
that's
Because it'll
true.
be their opinions to us, I
if
guess.
staff
Food for
wanna,
thought.
if staff wanna invite somebody, if landfill staff has somebody they wanna bring, or CPW
our-
does, or whomever wants to bring an expert or a witness of some sort, I always like to try to welcome that.
Do we have landfill staff flagged to attend?
Hope so.
Yes, in the sense that we had put off the other conversation that was requested at the landfill until after we could meet with CPW, and so I'd imagine Tyler or one of his staff will be
Okay.
there.
Great, thank you. Okay. If any folks have further thoughts on what they'd like to hear and have happen at that joint meeting, because we only do them rarely, honestly. I think I've done one or two in my time. That would be great. Let's see, July 8th. Looks fine. July 9th continues to be sparse yet long at the same time.
What's on
We
there?
have the liquor license renewal for Boulevard Barrel and Redstone. And then we have an administrative appeal, which is one of
Oh,
those
yeah.
very formal land use type hearings.
Are we gonna have any legal counsel at exec prior to that?
I don't know if we are.
Shall we check
or
with
need
Rye
to.
and see
Yep.
if he wants to chat with us?
I will ask him tomorrow when we do our agenda meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, the 15th, I think, yep, Francie's at the Colorado River District meetings, and Patty is at NACO. And that is a very light agenda.
Short day.
Yeah. I may join that one remotely if I decide to go out of town for my birthday week. And then the 16th, I think we should double check if Francie was going to join this remotely. I think she said that their River District meetings are usually over by noon, and she could possibly join on Zoom for our exec with our water attorneys while they're up here for some site visits. And that's all we got. Anything else?
When are we doing the site visit with council, water council?
I don't know if we're doing site visits. They're coming up with various staff. So that morning of I think they're here the 16th, 17th, and 18th.
Because aren't we having our meeting in Basalt?
Yeah, because in the morning they're going out to Glacier with open space, and then in the afternoon they're going up the Crystal. And so meeting in Basalt saves them having to come all the way up here for exec. What?
We're not on those crystal site visits, that's not something for us.
Would you like me to ask if you would like to attend?
I thought we were,
I just had it on here, I didn't know.
I think Francie and I both wanted to try to go to those, but I have ABSHA that evening, and Francie is going to be coming back from the River District meetings, but we were invited, so I'm sure that invitation extends to
Thank you.
you all as well. And then I forget what they're doing Thursday, and I think Friday they're touring the Twin Lakes.
Friday the
diversions.
18th?
I think so.
I'm going to be back from NACO on the 16th. I'll just
Don't
see.
quote me on that, but we can find out
Okay.
what the agenda is and
Okay.
if there's opportunities to attend.
I think that Friday they are going to be 16, 17. I'll check it because we got a month.
Okay. All right, that's all I have for future agendas. Do you guys want a 20-minute break, or do you want to do open discussion quickly?
Let's do some open discussion.
15-minute break.
Okay.
Yeah, good idea.
Do you have some open discussion?
Sorry, you
I
caught me
do.
multitasking.
Can I start, John?
Okay, go ahead, Patty.
Mushrooms. We all received a letter from Ashley Crouch Denny about her wanting us to, I'm not quite sure, she sent us a very well-written letter about her concerns about being able to open up her facility next to the childcare at the AABC for use of psychedelic mushrooms. And it would mean addressing a 1,000-foot distancing requirement that the state has to 0, because I think our property is really close proximity to the childcare. I don't know if the board wants to continue to follow up on this. We'd have to kind of create a whole new program, it's my understanding, licensing program, and as far as I know, this is the only property we've heard from who's interested. I know the city has set up their program, but I think the state law gives you some flexibility to do, the county can do their own program. I didn't know if how the board wanted to address this, to move it forward, or to wait and see how things kind of pan out, or, 'cause I don't know if we have staff right now who can handle this on top of everything else, or, I don't know. She contacted me a while back in March, and I said it would be up to the board. I thought it would be up to community development. They kicked the can back to me, so she
Oh,
came back
really?
to me. Yeah.
That would have been my first inclination, too.
It would likely actually be a licensing authority issue that would either fall with the clerk to the board, but the rules revision would likely fall in the attorney's office. So.
So I didn't know how we wanted to deal with it.
I wanted to just flag it for Board of Health, medical team and public health team, because I'm a little concerned about it. I don't think I know enough, and my inclination would be to let's just wait and see. It's kind of early, and we don't have to be out in front on that. But I think it'd be worthwhile to hear from our public health people, the Board of Health, for instance, as just one of the other
I
groups
think
to
that's a good
discuss
idea.
that.
Before we create a whole new program, let's see what they think about the need for, the concerns about
Right.
creating a program. And I think, and specifically, I mean, taking 1,000-foot distancing to 0 is quite a significant change. And
I'm trying to find that letter. I'm not finding it. but-
So can we, Chairman of the Board of Health,
I can do it if that's what the board wants.
bring it back to have him take it forward?
Board of Health look at it.
Yeah, I'm curious why ComDev didn't have any.
Because it's a licensing authority,
Yeah,
like the alcohol or marijuana.
exactly.
Ashley didn't think she needed a license. I have been reading, and I think it still
I
is a
think I need some
licensing
guidance.
provision.
Is the county we only have very narrow licensing authorities that are explicitly defined by the state, so.
So, and
curious.
In the law?
I think we'd have to look at this a little more closely, what the mechanism is, if it's actually a license or just a resolution of the board. Basically, state law identifies setbacks for these types of facilities, probably for a number of reasons, but there are particular setbacks from like child care facilities and schools. And the legislation provides the ability for a local jurisdiction to exempt businesses engaged in these activities from those setbacks by an action of the board. What I am less clear on, Kelly, if that's a licensing action or a
Right.
resolution.
Yeah.
But it's not really a land use kind of. It's a question of the decriminalization of mushrooms and some of the requirements around that.
So I think having Greg look, I think Greg's idea of taking it to Board of Health is probably good. We wouldn't want their input anyway, I think. But the other thing is I think we need legal to weigh in on the proper avenue. And I know, Rye's been pretty stacked up there, but so maybe it's a good thing we can give to our new deputy county attorney when she comes on board in a week and say, here, we brought you a new project already. And we can run it by Rye and see how he wants to. He's been reading it and reading up on it, but I thought that Ashley's letter was, but it was also, she's had legal counsel on her side, so I think we need to bounce that off our legal counsel to see if we can, what direction we need to go and how we need to go there. If we choose to go there.
Okay.
I don't have it. I have that letter and I don't see it now.
I know, it came from
I'll
Sam, I
send it
just
on.
looked it up.
Oh, Sam, on the 12th. Thanks.
Yeah, okay.
This was Sam's response, but it wasn't Ashley's letter.
Got it, okay.
Her letter
So
was.
Greg, will you be forwarding this to Public Health?
If I can
and
find the letter,
then-
I'm gonna send it on to Public Health.
It came in from
There it is.
Sam
John,
under
will you be
public comment.
coordinating with the attorney's office
Here it
on the
is.
mechanism for this?
Thanks.
I'm trying to figure out what our direction is here.
Yeah, I can certainly share the letter with Ryan. We can talk about the mechanism, and then I think whether the board acts on it or such would be based on advice of the Board of Health. Voice again. Good Lord.
Mine
Okay.
too. There's some others room, I think.
Thank you. Other open discussion?
I had a, just real quick, I did present at NACO last week at our Zoom meeting on transportation, and I introduced our we changed our resolution about the use of revenues, and it is going to move on to the general meeting in convention in Philadelphia, and I'll be doing the full presentation that Friday in Philly.
Okay.
So, and we'll put in some of your changes into the reso.
Right, wonderful, thank you.
And next year, we'll probably be doing it, 2026, we'll be moving it to a platform amendment, which is a more permanent thing because of what's coming out of the FAA in that year. So timing will be good.
Thank you. John, do you have any open discussion?
Actually, hold on. Let me get my electronic. Oh, yes. One thing. Just let the board know the Staff and the AAB are starting to work on terminal task force recommendations to come back to this board, and that would be community task forces set up in different areas to advise the architects and the AAB on terminal design elements, so that as it comes up to you, you know that that's been informed. We're going to start talking about those on Thursday, and so just in case you write in the paper and such, we wanted that to come through the AAB first and then to the board.
Okay. Questions?
It's resolving the wingspan, I think, on Thursday as well.
Oh, yeah, there's going to be a big meeting. We're going to be going over the information around project management structures. We'll have the patio shelter discussion, and we'll be having task force
That
discussions.
sounds so funny.
Yeah.
My first discussion about the airport was patio shelters, 20, God only knows how many years ago.
Never going to end, Patty.
And I thought we were having picnics at the airport. That's what I knew about the airport. I said, why are we setting a place where people have picnics at the airport? Watch the big planes fly in and out.
Okay. If that is all, let's have a break till 3:15, please.
Sounds like we should adjourn. It's
you,
after
everyone.
open discussion.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Okay, to the Pickens County Board of County Commissioners work session on Tuesday, June 17th. And we are going to hear an update on the planning for the Up in the Sky concert series, which will take place at Buttermilk in August this year. We are requested to have sort of a progress report, as this is our first year of permitting this festival. And so I will turn it over to Samantha and Suzanne with Community Development.
Yeah, my name's Samantha Haberman. I'm the Special Events Permit Coordinator, and I'm here with Suzanne Wolf and David and Danny Goldberg are here too. And yeah, we, in July 2024, Belly Up submitted an application for a concert for 16,000 attendees, just as a background, and it was approved, but there was a request for a midwinter update on, we had one on March 4th, and there's an additional update in June, which is right now. Since October, the county has met with the applicant once a month. Our main focus has been transportation, parking, safety and security, and circulation of guests. These monthly meetings will take place and continue to take place until the event. And in addition to monthly meetings, the applicant has had meetings with the sheriff and the ambulance district 3 times to formulate a traffic plan. And the applicant and the county have met with all the referral agencies to discuss all transportation and circulation on both February 3rd and April 24th. This included all the public safety agencies, the airport, the city of Aspen, CDOT, and Colorado State Patrol, County Public Works, and Rafter, and other agencies. We will have another one of these meetings in July. Yeah, and just as a background, the concert will take place on Friday and Saturday, August 8th and 9th, and the doors open at 3 p.m. and showtime from 4 until 10. Yes, there's a little bit more of an update if you guys want, or we could just talk to David and Danny about any questions you might have about the progress of the event.
Why don't you go ahead and give us the full update?
Sure. So again, overview, the concentrated traffic activity is essentially at Buttermilk parking lot. The applicant has gotten permission from the ski company and is still working on kind of solidifying a contract with the county for the lot. Different sections of the lot will be used for shuttles, rideshare, bike parking, and hotel shuttles as well. The applicant has obtained an agreement with Colorado State Patrol to provide traffic enforcement on 82 in that area. And the concert attendees at this moment will not be able to park their vehicles at Buttermilk lot. To get to the Buttermilk parking lot, shuttles will run from Wagner and Aspen, Brush Creek Park and Ride, and also in Snowmass. There are 3 essential pickups they're thinking about doing in Snowmass: the Transit Center, the top of Mall, and then Town Park, which is the rodeo lot, but I don't think I should call it that anymore. I think it's Town Park now. And there's also been progress on the biking aspect of the event. I think last time we covered registering bicycles to get approximate number of bikes, providing education for bikers. The applicant will also provide bike storage to discourage any BUIs that may occur. And they are also looking into getting bike ambassadors who will help provide pacing back into town and help with any problems that might arise. We are now currently working with public safety agencies to Belly Up is working with public safety to provide emergency egress plans and a coordinated medical response for big emergencies. And that is what I have.
Okay. Suzanne, anything to add?
I don't think I have
We'll
anything
turn
to
it
add.
over Okay, we'll turn it over
Covered
to
it.
David and Danny, and then we'll open up for questions from the board.
That's essentially the gist of it. I think the things that I would add to it is I'm actively working with these 2 gentlemen behind me, as well as Gabe from Aspen Ambi, in terms of now, as alluded to, working through the emergency action plan, the evacuation plan, the medical plan, and all of that. They've obviously been integral in the transportation side of things as well too, making sure from a public safety side of things that their desires are being met as well on that too. The thing I would add, I guess, to the biking side of things is that's still probably not as, I think we feel really good about where it is, but we're just still solving where the ambassador side is going to fall. We do fully plan on doing that. We've been in discussions with Aspen Aspen Cycling Community?
Cycling Club.
Aspen Cycling Club, there it is, I'm sorry. We've been in contacts with Aspen Cycling Club about having their participation in the bike valet program as well as being the bike ambassadors. The concept behind the bike ambassadors is just having somebody who's familiar with the trails, familiar with the path that we believe is the safest path to come back to Aspen and to go out to Buttermilk from as well too. Obviously, that's something that I have been speaking with both Parker and Alex and Gabe about as well too. So that's something that we're formulating on the safety side of things as well. I think that that's pretty close to being done, but we're just basically figuring out the nuances of how many people, what the hours are, and really the bike valet program as well too. So that's essentially the only parts that I would add to what Samantha added to this. So if there's any questions, of course, which I'm sure there are.
I'll look to you. I have some. Jeffrey? Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
Do we always use cattle guards to move people around?
It depends. It's bike fencing, cattle guards.
I know, I just love the term
yeah.
cattle guards. It's like herding people from one point to another using cattle guards. I just had to bring that up because I noticed that.
It becomes cattle to some degree.
It feels like it sometimes too.
I know. So I think that's more than appropriate.
Yeah, I think actually one thing you just sparked in my brain that I would add to this is in addition to Colorado State Patrol, we also are using the same traffic management company out of Denver that we used for Palm Tree this year. We felt that that was the best that we've had by far.
They were great.
Yeah, we were very impressed with them. I know that the city is potentially looking at using them for certain things as well too. I'm not sure where that has progressed to or not, but we felt very comfortable with them at Palm Tree this year. We thought they did a fantastic job. They were very responsive, very responsible, and they are contracted for us to use as well for this event as well. So that's obviously in tandem and in conjunction and underneath Colorado State Patrol and Sheriff's purview, but they will be providing traffic assistance for us, traffic management assistance for us.
Greg, you had a question?
Yeah, I just want to, regarding the bike route, how's the bike route going to work? Can you cross the light and then get on the path or go up to the underpass?
So that part is not 100% settled, but what we are believing that we're going to do now is there is going to be crossing the light at 82, the same with pedestrians. So that will be managed by Colorado State Patrol. That will be also a dismounted area, so bikers will have to dismount on the way in, on the way out. They won't be permitted to be on their bike because there's the interaction between them and pedestrians at that point. It will obviously be managed as a crosswalk by CSP at that point when it does happen, not just a regular light. Once they get onto the path, at that point they're able to mount their bikes and bike back, or on the ingress they have to dismount their bikes when they get to that. Right above, there's a fork in the road above the bus stop. And then the path continues back to town. One thing we're exploring, actually really in the last few days, is instead of having it come over Cemetery Lane and then underneath through Meroldt, because we want to take people through Meroldt so it stays on that side of Main Street so there is no interaction between Main Street and bikers once they get back into town. One thing that we kind of just are exploring at this point is making the bike path go underneath by the golf course. I think that's the 14th hole or so, or 13th hole, going, don't ask why, but going underneath the underpass there and then going over the bridges over by the church. And that way it can continuously feed that in and avoid the corner underneath the bridge, and also avoid any crossing at Cemetery Lane. That's something in the last 24 hours that we've been looking at. So I don't want to say that that is cemented. I haven't had a chance to speak to them about that yet. I haven't had a chance to speak to Gabe about it yet, but that's something that we're certainly looking at for the path at this moment.
The thing I'm noticing on the bike paths lately, and I brought it up at the last RAFTA meeting, is that there are a lot of people with earbuds in just on a regular day. Earbuds in, completely oblivious, walking down the center of the path. And I'll be commuting in, and I'm going the speed limit, but even still, I have to slow way down, but I ring my bell, I yell, they don't hear me. It's just so frustrating. And it occurred to me that if you've got a lot of people walking on the path, because some people might choose just to walk out there, and riding bikes, I would love it if we tried to delineate lanes on our bike paths, and maybe this would be an opportunity to contemplate that, just to create safety zones so you don't have walkers and bikers and earbuds and all, try to take some of the danger out of that, because people traveling at different speeds anymore, e-bikes versus regular bikes versus peds. It just occurs to me that with a large volume of people, assuming there might be,
Yep.
it might be worth contemplating how to manage that. I love the idea of going around the other way. That's a great idea.
I can't take credit for that. That would be a couple people who are helping us out.
Patty and I pined for a bike path on the side from Buttermilk up to the underpass on that side of the road for quite a while.
Well, that's
And
gonna come, right?
2 years
Eventually.
out.
If we had it now, they could use
We're
it.
up,
Do
we're on
we have
track.
a technical issue? Sorry, hang on. Are we still live on Grassroots?
We're still broadcast. Yeah.
Okay, and there's nobody who's joined us on Zoom for this, so we can keep going? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if we
We'll
had
be
that
back
bike-
in a
if we had that bike path now, they could use it.
If we had it now, that would certainly be the path we'd
So you
take.
can plan ahead for a couple years when you do a concert.
When we get to that
again, you're
point,
gonna-
that will be the route we take. To that point, that's absolutely, that's not my purview to make the decision on what's going to obviously happen on those paths in terms
Right,
of delineating peds or bikers. But certainly, if that's something that I'm given the opportunity to do that, or given the instruction or direction to do that, we'll absolutely incorporate that in the
Just
ways
tell
that
people to
I'm
unplug
able
on the
to.
path.
And in regards to that side of things, that's part of what the concept is with the ambassadors. The ambassadors are locals. The idea would be to have them, whether it's glow sticks on their helmets or some type of light. So it's we can't force people to stay with the ambassador, but the ambassador is providing a helping hand to help guide people back safely. A beacon. If somebody goes past their house, they don't have to continue to stay with them and check in with them. It's a helping hand. That's the intent. And the intent would be to have them in the front. And really aware of the surroundings and making sure that they understand that they're that helping hand. So if there is somebody in the road that looks like somebody has their earbuds and stuff, they would hopefully be able to slow people down. That's the intent behind it. Plus, obviously, just directional.
Thank you. The last question was just regarding the traffic. Of course, as we know, Highway 82, I think I actually was going a little bit over the speed limit the other day, and people were blowing, he's looking at me, people were blowing by me at least 5-10 miles an hour faster than I was.
Oh, yeah.
And I just thought, okay, speed limits at that time of night, in the evening, heading down Valley, commuters getting out of town. If CSP is there, that should make a difference. But I'm just thinking regarding traffic calming and being on top of it. It's a recipe for. It's a great opportunity to calm traffic that evening. I'll just put it that way. Those 2 evenings.
Yeah, again, that's
not
not
you.
my purview.
It's not
I'll
you,
do whatever's
but
asked of me there.
It's like, it's kind of like an attractive nuisance to have
Yeah.
that many more people on a highway that's already, people are just flying at 75 miles an hour or more down
Yeah.
there.
I would imagine the sheriff's office is gonna have a little more presence.
Yeah, I
out
kind of
there.
think they will, but I just thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah.
And you also have the state patrol sitting there also,
Right,
so.
that helps.
And
That's
the
always a
whole
good
length
one.
of the quarter, I think people will be more,
Yeah, for sure.
I think,
I
can I
would think
take on the
through
bike thing real quick?
Sorry,
I
go
think
to
through
Suzanne and
CSP,
then.
just, that the sort of like the variable message signs and things, that I don't know, like how that gets triggered. These guys can probably speak better to that, but I know, right, with X Games and whatnot, event ahead, 'cause some of that messaging on the signs,
The heat is on.
I think helps, so.
The heat is on.
We'll have them there
Yeah.
singing. I think too, the opportunity, if somebody rides their bike out and then goes, I just don't think I can ride home. For whatever reason, you guys have an opportunity for them to store their bike overnight, and I think that's great. So I think it's pretty exciting to be looking at alternate forms of transportation to get there. Walking, biking, I think are pretty interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how it all works out.
It's like a preview 5 years into the future.
Yeah, I think,
That's what we're here for. To that point, that's part of why that's one of many reasons why we're looking at a bike valet versus not looking at it, we're going to do a bike valet versus just bike rack parking. One, it allows an interaction from a human to a human, and one that could potentially say, hey, maybe you should consider not biking. We obviously can't stop anybody from doing that, but there's obviously ramifications if somebody does. BUIs are a real thing, as I've learned on this process. So that human-to-human interaction when somebody is going to collect their bike, that's a touch point where somebody could either advise somebody that it's probably not the best decision for them to do so, and inform them about the free transportation shuttles that we will have as well too. And then additionally, that's an area that we will collect and store bikes for somebody to be able to come back the next day. So if it could be because they're tired, it could be because they're inebriated, it could be just
because they had too much fun. And
yeah,
they just
whatever
wanna
it may
ride
be,
home.
if somebody doesn't feel like they're safe or able to ride their bike back, we are preparing ourselves to be able to have the bikes and have the individual come back the next day and collect the bike.
Will your dad be riding his bike out there?
Is there a day that he doesn't?
We can't control him.
He feels picked
They
on
know what he
back
looks
there.
like.
Can't control
How
your
will
dad.
you communicate to your ticket holders about planning for their bike routes or shuttle pickups, things like that?
We plan on sending out a brief survey, if you will, to get some sense, knowing that we're not going to get everybody to respond to it, but with incentives for people to respond. And a number of incentives, and actually ones that hold weight behind them, to help us properly plan, just so we have an estimate from the shuttle side of things, for the bike side of things, et cetera. And that's going to be the first touch point where we have people's email addresses when they purchase tickets, and we'll do it via social media as well too. So that's going to go out sometime at the end of this month or early July to get a better sense of what we can expect, right? Something along those lines. Additionally, as we get closer to the event, we will continue to reach out to them, and then there'll be a final no before you go the week of the event that will basically tell, one, it will be a specific target for people who have delineated beforehand that they are going to bike, and then also it'll be a blanket statement for all attendees that if they change their mind and they do want to bike, because we don't want to turn somebody away that didn't necessarily say they were going to, but then decided to because it's a beautiful day. So that communication will come via email and our social channels as well too. But we get emails when people purchase a ticket, so we have a direct line of communication like that.
Thank you. Jeffrey?
Sure. Thanks for all your diligence, both staff, first responders. Thanks for all your work on this to make it successful, and thanks for all the considerations for health and safety. Given we're less than 2 months out, any risks in terms of the project? From the memo, there was like talk of FAA compliance. Like, is everything checking and tracking in terms of where we are 2 months out?
From
Less than 2 months out.
SKICO's handling and has the request in for FAA. From what I've been told from as recent as a week ago, there's nothing that stands out in that regard. This is normal process for them. The request is in the queue. Normally, if there's any questions from the other side of the queue, they ask, and they did check in, but they haven't heard back yet. But this is pretty much par for the course of what I've been told in that regard.
Thank you.
Any concerns from staff on particular topics? No. Okay. How are ticket
Shake his
sales?
head.
How many people are we going to get? 16,000 people?
We don't anticipate 16,000 people. That was never our intent to start the first time with that. Like everything else we do, we want to grow into things prudently. And if you look at Palm Tree over the last few years, it has continued to grow. Our intent would be to see how things work. And you know, at the end of the day, we live in this community. We're a part of this community. We have kids in this community. We want to make sure that what this is and what this becomes fits seamlessly within that as well too. Obviously, it's an event. Obviously, there's going to be factors to it, much like there is with Palm Tree or anything else. But we don't want those to be overriding factors. So while we know that we can safely and successfully pull off 16,000 people in that area from a square footage perspective and from a bathrooms perspective and from a safety perspective, we want to make sure that we're able to first accommodate what it does to the rest of the community and everything along those lines. So there will not be 16,000 people this year. We just know that from an actual numbers perspective, that's definitely doable, but that's not where we intend to start.
And then relative to debriefing on the event, because I think this is our last check-in before it takes place, what is a reasonable time to come back and give us the post-action report?
My side or their side?
This is a collaborative process.
You're recovered.
So I know
Yeah.
you all have
Well,
desire to do it quickly and
Yeah.
get feedback for.
I mean, I think
Future
to
planning.
add to that, I mean, I think there's a debrief, and they've also submitted their application for an event for next year already, because David can tell you a lot about trying to plan for music and things. We've learned a lot. But, you know, like how far out in advance you need to be. So that application's already in with us. I feel like being able to debrief and then, you know, at that point be talking about like, okay, given now what we've seen, you know, where are we, you know, on that permitting for next year? They're obviously going to be looking to kind of know if there's a go-ahead for that as soon as possible once this is over. So I haven't looked at a calendar yet to kind of go at what point, but I would think, you know, looking to the public safety folks, I mean, within, you know, I'd have to say a month of the event, I would think we'd want to be able to come to you and sort of do that dual, here's the debrief, and with that, you know, are there concerns with us moving forward to process an application for an event for the next year as well?
Does that work for the board? I'll make sure we hold time.
Month, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we'll look at agendas and whatnot, but
Jeffrey?
Just one more follow-up. Anything else you need in order to be successful? From
You
the
know, I
you know,
guess-
you got everyone here.
No, I appreciate that, and thank you. I think it's pertinent now. Time. We believe being diligent in everything we do. You can't rush things, and that goes for booking artists. That goes for collecting the right and the most responsible and professional vendors. There's a number of waterfall events when you were put into a short calendar, and that's the nature of the beast when you do things in a first iteration. We understand that. We're no strangers to it, but the more time the better. Candidly, we have palm trees lineup completely booked as of a couple months ago. I'm already working on 2027 for it, and that's not to say that this should be on that same agenda. It's just the more time the better the event is going to be. We believe in that. There is no we check every box when we do things, and doing something in a condensed timeline always adds a little bit more strain to it. It's not impossible. It doesn't mean that you're cutting corners, but having time certainly helps you do things the right way. So I guess to answer the original question, as soon as possible, we'd be ready to meet as soon as everybody's ready to. For us, I have to be looking ahead. I wouldn't be doing my job correctly if I wasn't looking ahead. I was looking ahead before I came in here for the first application. That doesn't mean that I was being presumptuous and assumed that I was going to get it, but I don't think we would have gotten it if we weren't looking ahead and we weren't prepared for it. So we would be doing ourselves and everybody a disservice if we weren't already planning for the future. That's just the nature of the beast. If the future doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen, but that's the same for this first year, right? So we're always chomping at the bits while respecting the process and understanding that we have to prove what we've put on paper and actually see it come to fruition and go through all of the breakdown afterwards and see how it all went. Respecting all of that, there's still never enough time.
And I think you see that evidence from Palm Tree with given more time, what we can do with more time. It's very helpful.
Okay. And we'll hope for good weather. 77 degrees, sunny.
We hope for it, but we don't
clouds.
plan
That would
for
be
it.
perfect.
That's how it works.
All right, any further questions for
Thanks,
this
guys.
team? Any comments
Thank
for
you.
anyone in the audience? Public safety? Okay.
Good
You
job.
good, board?
Thank you, guys.
You did
Appreciate
talk
it.
to RAFTA. RAFTA is part
Oh
of
yeah,
this.
we've been
Yeah.
involved with RAFTA. Samantha alluded to something about snowmass. Didn't feel like I should have jumped into it, but now I will. The only reason snowmass is still going between how many stops we're going to have is because City of Snowmass Transit and RAFTA are communicating on what they recommend. If they recommend 3, which has been alluded to me, we're going to go with 3. If they recommend 2, we'll go with 2. So they've been in the fold. I've been talking to them numerous times and just waiting on that final feedback.
That's a great way to shuttle people from Snowmass.
And then regarding the Rio Grande Trail, I'm not sure exactly who's in charge of that? Is it, RAFTA, it's RAFTA's right of way, but open
No,
space
they're gonna be on
has
the
a-
city trail.
I mean, for the hikers and walkers. No,
Yeah, I
it's,
would-
it's right, it's not the Rio
it's gonna
Grande
be
Trail, is
right.
it?
It's
Oh,
the-
it's not
it's
the
the
RAFTA
city
right
It's
of
the
way.
city trail.
Thank you for that.
And it
So we
connects
don't
to
have-
that
you don't have
bridge,
to talk to
that
them.
walkway we don't have yet, that
Right,
bikeway.
yeah.
We'll talk to you eventually, I guess, right? On that.
You can talk to us about anything you want. You're always welcome here.
Got it, thank you. I was thinking Rio Grande Trail, it's like, no, you're not going down there, okay.
And just,
It's on the long route, but
Yeah, that's the long way.
and
Right, we
Greg,
do-
to your thought about trying to separate, I mean, I think the reason most of our trails aren't now is because we just don't have the width. I mean, I think
Right.
we can talk to them and see if they have suggestions, obviously, on how
It'd be
best
temporary.
to,
I think it's
to
just
do
encouraging
that, but
walkers
it's to
to
try and, when I think about places where you actually have separated walking trails and then biking together, I mean, you've got a 20-foot swath of
Right.
area to try and spread that out.
Just imagine the volume of people and bikes in the dark, though. You
They're
kind
gonna
of-
have.
Right, I mean, that's why I think, trying to come up with the solutions that are mostly like, how can you make it safe? But I'm not sure the solution is that it works to try and,
That may
put
not
a
be
line
the
down the middle
solution,
and
right.
separate
I
them,
think
but there
part
are
of the
other ways
biking
to.
ambassador program is to make sure people have appropriate lighting or some kind of glow stick for people who will be walking, who don't think about having a headlamp on, and
that's also part of the know before you go. We'll make sure, I mean, you can lead a horse to water, you can't guarantee they're gonna read everything, but that's all the information that we put out there, and we can certainly include things about earbuds as well too. We'll have glow sticks in lieu of people who don't have headlamps, but the messaging to people will be, we encourage people to have headlamps if you're biking, we encourage you to wear a helmet.
or walking.
Or walking, yeah, exactly. We can't force somebody to have a helmet, but we will certainly encourage it as much as we can.
And if they're
in
walking, they should
advance.
have a helmet too.
And I think a big it's a share the trail message, because, right,
Yeah.
they're gonna
It's a
have to
place to
know
put their
that
headlamp.
I
you're
just
not gonna be able
bubble
to ride quickly because there are going to be a lot of other people on that
In full
trail with
daylight
you.
the other day, I was coming into town and somebody was dressed head to toe in black with a black hat, standing in the shade and stepped out, onto Main Street, and it was like I didn't see him until the last, second, and it wasn't a chance of a collision, but it was just a shock that somebody appeared out of the shadows that quickly. And just,
were
you
lurking.
can imagine people, you're wearing black head to toe, but you don't think about it, but you're invisible.
Sorry.
The three of you.
You're setting a really terrible
I have
example.
brown pants on for the record.
Don't be going out in the dark like that.
I stay off the streets.
For many reasons.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
great.
Thank you.
All right,
Of
thank
course,
you.
Thanks,
we
gentlemen.
want to appreciate it, but goes without saying, if there's ever any questions or anything, like, obviously, we don't have another meeting between now and then.
We know where to find
Yeah, you do, and my phone's always open, as is his, so by all means.
Thank you.
All right,
Great,
thank you
thanks.
very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Have a good day.
All right, we are going to move on to our last item of the day, since we've already done future agendas and board open discussion. And this will be to discuss Pickens County's property tax relief program. Liz has her hand up, I think. She may need to rejoin. Do you need? Do you guys, are you waiting for it? Should we take a break? Do you have 2
I'm
minutes
not
until-
sure. Was some confusion, so it might be Liz and I, but I think we can carry it.
Okay, we're still a minute before the agenda item as well, so if someone else is expected, they may just be showing up on time, not early. Hi, Liz.
It's fall wherever she is.
Yeah.
I really struggle with Zoom, so sometimes it takes me a while to figure out how to change that photo, and I figured I shouldn't mess around with that.
That surprised me. You're so analytically savvy.
I'm fine with everything else. It's Zoom. There's Zoom in me. I don't know what it is.
Hi, Kara.
Hi, how are you all?
Are you ready, or would you like to wait?
I see Sam in the slide deck. Let me just see if he's trying to get on. We can go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and get started and
All right.
start from there. All right. Hi, everyone. Kara Silbernagel, Deputy County Manager, and we have Liz Woods, Finance Director, and I believe Sam Lander-Casper is also going to jump in. So, and I think this is very indicative of it's taken a whole crew to bring this program back to you all. So thank you all for your patience as we came back. So the purpose of today's discussion is in 2024, the board directed and staff implemented a property tax relief program on the heels of the very large property tax increases that we saw from the valuations. Last year, as you all were going through the budget process, you had wanted, based on those outcomes, for staff to come back and look at if we would want to implement that again for 2025, as well as any futures. So we'll walk through a bit of the program, some of what we saw, and some staff recommendations if you wanted to consider it for 2025. Let's see. Why won't that move forward? There we go. It's just so. Okay. So just a little bit of background and context for everyone. Many remember. In 2024, we saw Pickens County had a 70% increase in actual valuations above the 2022 assessed values. How that came in on actual property tax increases was a 27% average. Pickens County applied taxes was about 25%. Other districts on average were 28%, but it's really how it applied across the county, and obviously that varied depending on which districts folks were in and which, obviously, the actual increase in valuation. So based on those high valuation programs, the board had asked staff to come back with a proposed property tax relief program and how that could be applied in a way to offset those higher costs. So staff worked on building it off of the low income senior tax program that's been in place since the 1990s. And really the purpose of this program is to assist older adults on those fixed incomes to offset their property values. So, and this has been administered by Senior Services, and that program has over time set a pretty good standard of how income and age eligibility apply. And so we use that as the baseline for looking at how to apply and create a property tax program across the board. And so we looked at the federal poverty level as a threshold, and then using that by household income, and then what a sliding scale may look like. So we created it as it was applied to anyone that was non-OPSHA or deed restricted. And then working with all of you, we had looked at a few different options as far as 60% of income level, 400%, and where we really landed is as we looked at the living wage calculator with MIT, that using kind of the same metrics is where we all landed on the 500% federal poverty level. And sorry, real quick, Spaz, can you let Sam in? Thanks. And now we're getting the real expert on the table too, so he can add color. Thank you. So again, this was the eligibility was based off of 500% federal poverty level, and it was originally calculated at a sliding scale on income as a percentage of that. The other requirements is obviously the household had to have an increase in property taxes, and then rental incomes were not eligible. And the maximum rebate was capped at $2,000 per household. And Sam, if I'm going through the high level, so please add color along the way.
Hi, Sam. We got started a little early. Sorry about that.
No worries.
And so this is just looking as you all were creating the program last year, again, looking at how we landed on the 500%. And again, there's 60% AMI as one threshold. The senior tax relief program uses the federal poverty level. And so when we started to look at that, again, compared to the living wage calculator is where we really landed. You all landed on that 500% threshold, made the most sense as we looked across what the impact would be in the county. And so these are the numbers. We don't have the 500%, but as a percentage of income of the population in Pitkin County, where we started to see how this program can start to impact other folks. And so coming into the program outcomes, so in total we had 132 applications received, 112 were approved. There are 20 that were not approved. Sam might be able to speak to more specifics, but some of it was some coming in that did still have a deed restriction, so they were not eligible or other reasons. 63 of those were seniors and 49 were non-seniors. So, over half of them were already basically in the senior tax rebate program and basically just rolled into this property tax relief program. So in total, the distribution was $132,000 with the average rebate about $1,100. And this is where I might let Sam give a little bit more detail. When we first did this, we actually applied it on a sliding scale, and the initial total that we were looking at was around $32,000, and so we reevaluated how to apply this program because it was not having quite the same impact I think that we were hoping to have. Sam, could you maybe allude on that or expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, essentially what happened as we did the first calculations, we revisited it and looked at the amount of funds we had available and really looking at what the impact was. We were seeing that some of the issuances were going to be quite low. And so looking at people's income versus their expenses, we thought it made sense to adjust it. We basically removed the sliding scale aspect. So essentially, especially for the seniors, if you qualified, we would pay the difference of your property tax up to 2,000 and excluding what the senior tax program had already paid. So basically making you whole on your property tax up to that 2,000 cap and not double paying what the senior tax had paid, if that makes sense. And I think I would add, when we say non-senior applicants, that is probably not the way I should have worded that. But what it's trying to convey is that those were folks who did not apply through the senior tax rebate program that we already had in place. So technically those folks could be older adults. We weren't looking at age when looking at eligibility. So it just means they didn't come through the senior center tax program.
Thanks, Sam.
So I have a question.
Patty?
But you couldn't do both? The existing senior tax, this existing senior tax rebate program and this one, you could do both, or one or the other? You could do both.
You could technically do both because folks had already applied for the senior center tax rebate program. What we did is it was an extension of that, what this property tax relief program did. So what we did is we made sure that if they had received a benefit through the senior center tax program, that was included, or it was excluded from their benefit in the property tax program, meaning they didn't double dip. They weren't paid for, yeah.
So you balanced it.
Exactly. We had to look it up. We had to make sure we had all of those there, look at what their rebate would be through the other program, and then subtract what had already been paid.
So that to me would make then better sense out of processing this under one application with the senior tax rebate program and this tax rebate program. Okay.
Yeah, it would be simpler if it were happening again,
sense.
that they both happened at the same time, and then it would just be one benefit calculation.
Great, thanks.
And so looking at, I don't think we have a distribution by age, and thanks for that clarification, Sam, but here's just a distribution by household size. So predominantly we are looking at single person households is where most of this was distributed, and then to those 2-person households, and then very few as it got larger. And then as you can see from this, and I always get confused in this math, Sam, because higher is lower and lower is higher. So maybe you can describe this.
You're right. It is really confusing, and it's meant to be the percent below the federal poverty level that the group is. Meaning, so if you're in the blue section, your household was 0 to 25% below the federal poverty level, meaning you're closer to the federal poverty level that would make you self-sufficient. So the green segment are the folks who are furthest from. They're basically 100% below federal poverty level for the program would mean 0 income.
Great.
Hopefully that makes sense. It is shown strangely here. I should have thought more about that.
Wow.
And so I think the takeaway, thank you, you explained it so well, Sam. So the takeaway here is still showing that you know, this program is really having impact on some of those most in need that have very minimal income coming in, and it is making an impact for those individuals. So we've alluded to it a little bit, but some of the challenges and lessons learned is, you know, as I'll call it icing on top of other programs. It definitely added complexity for small scale programs. Sam alluded to this a little bit of there was another eligibility benefit review that he did through economic services on top of the seniors after the senior center eligibility process. I know Liz might be able to speak to it, but then there was also how the rebate checks were refunded. Again, it's because it's not captured within other processes. It kind of took everyone, it was still large enough that it took everyone a little bit of time and complexity of how to run these through our regular systems outside of maybe a regular cycle. And then I think what's not on here is also some of the outreach challenges of having to explain to folks, Patty, to somewhat of your question, if I'm in the senior center tax relief program, am I eligible? Am I precluded if I'm not in the senior center? And so there just was, for a small scale program, there still was a lot of complexity in trying to roll this out. And so I think some of that is informing as we look to future designs of the program based on where the board wants to go. How can we streamline it for everyone? Sam or Liz, is there anything you'd add from your perspectives on this? No? Okay.
Sorry, I would just add that, because this was kind of like a one-time thing at the time when we first implemented it, there was a lot of confusion about like, oh, does this live with economic services, or does it live with finance, or does it live with senior services, or where does this program live and who's supposed to be taking this on and stuff like that. So if the program continues, I think we, again, kind of just want that clarity of what this is and what the intention is longer term.
Thank you. Perfect segue. So looking ahead, I think Liz teed it up great is, if we want to continue the program, how can we, what is the intention? Is it another one-off for this year? If so, we definitely can make that happen, but then also getting some direction. Is it more long-term, and what does that look like as an ongoing program? I think staff's recommendation is that we discontinue this as a standalone, and if we continue in that we really roll it into the senior low income tax program, that we would still maintain all the same eligibility requirements. We wouldn't really change much of how the program was applied at this point in time for 2025. There might be changes if we wanted to look more long term. And then lastly, we do not have an appropriation for this, so we can move forward, but we would be coming forward in a Q3 supplemental for that appropriation. And so really wanting to hand this back to the board for your discussion and direction of where you all want to head, and staff can move forward based on that direction.
Okay, thank you, Patty.
So clarification though, if we roll it into the senior low income tax program, it would still be a program where people didn't have to be seniors.
I believe so, but Sam,
that would be confusing. I want to apply for this, but I'm not a senior, but I could apply for the standalone low income property tax relief program. So would it just be the same process application, but you checked, I'm applying for this or this route? I don't want people to think they had to be a senior to get the standalone.
Yeah, I think there would need to be some discussion around that, because the senior tax program has been going on for over, I think, 30 years now, and it is some form of partnership with the city of Aspen. So as far as if we were to rename the program, I think we'd have to look into how that would work, but you're correct. We wouldn't want to limit it to only older adults, but we also don't want the name to make people think that it's limited to that population. So we'd have to figure out how we wanted to message that, and where exactly people could access it. But I think, based on what we did this year, it wouldn't be limited to folks who are over 60.
Yeah, I think that could be worked out, but I think it would make sense to just have the one application process, but differentiate within the application that you didn't have to be a senior, you could apply for the standalone. I think that's what I would suggest. And I would also suggest keeping the 500%, that item number 2 there, the same. And 3, yeah, moving forward. As far as 4, I think we should look at it year by year, because we don't know what property taxes may or may not do. And hopefully people will see things settling down in year out, 2026, 27. So rather than just build it in, I'd rather, if we had the opportunity to reevaluate.
I have a question. So when was the last time we sent out a rebate? And when do we message the opportunity to apply for this? Because at this point, people should have paid their property taxes.
Right. So at this point, we have not issued anything for 2025, right?
For the 2024 tax year.
Yes, yes. We could still, basically it's a rebate, so we could issue it at December 31st, right? It's a rebate on any property taxes paid for 2024.
It actually paid in 25.
Right.
Yes.
I guess I'm just wondering, how do we tell people that they can apply for this?
So if the board wanted to move forward, we did capture, and Sam, maybe you can speak about we have already done the senior low income tax program this year. We captured, I think, a lot of that eligibility requirements through that, so we would communicate to them. Probably would still be running an outreach campaign to anyone else yet again. And then, could set up a timeline for distribution.
Okay, other thoughts?
Yeah, and
Yeah, just want to make sure, I approve, I agree with what Patty said, and we just need to name it appropriately. If we're combining the two, makes perfect sense, let's simplify it, but it can't be the senior low-income tax program any longer.
it could be a tax relief program with a standalone low income and with a senior low income. So 2 categories under a property tax relief program.
Right. And I think maybe this is mistitled. It's more, we would want to run the application process through that same eligibility criteria, right? Because it's streamlining for staff. So it's probably more.
So nobody's being left out
Yeah.
of this we're not talking about excluding people who would have been applicable before,
Right.
qualified before.
Either or.
Yeah, I think I agree with all that. Thank you.
That's Jeffrey.
So,
There you go.
forgetting the back-end machinations of the system side of this, super supportive of having a dual approach, whether it's age or income-based, I think is appropriate given the background story, which is the increase in valuations. So when we look at a suite of services that we offer in the community, we start to think, we need both. So again, I think a lot of this feels like plumbing on the final page. So how it's enacted, I guess, is less of a concern, more so that, yes, I support maintaining both services and both offerings going forward.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not.
No,
What do
no,
you
it
think
does.
about bringing it back every year or planning ahead and allocating in the budget for 26? I don't know where.
We could plan for it and then just have a quick review.
If I could, I think from the staff perspective, because it always comes so quickly, and I believe it's like the beginning of Q2, when maybe, Sam, when we do the senior low income, I think from staff's perspective, it would be helpful to be planning as part of the budget process, because to Liz's point of understanding where this is sitting, how we're planning for our work years of, is this something we need to continue to think about just on a, all the projects that everyone is trying to manage over the course of years.
So, can I finish real quick?
Patty,
So
then
that
Greg.
being said, we would still have the opportunity to review it year to year based on the budget process. I just want to make sure we have that opportunity. So I'm okay with bringing it back in the 2026 budget, and then, and if we need to do it for years after that, but it allows us then to say, wait a minute, property taxes have plummeted, so we may want to reconsider the criteria.
I was just going to say, I appreciate that we offer this, and I know people that have appreciated it as well in the community. So I think it's appreciated. Everyone talks about increased property taxes being pretty much of a shock last time around, and they still feel it with the inflation hitting everybody from all directions. I just think this is something that if we can afford to do this, we should do it.
I like the idea of planning for it because my hope would be maybe we can align our communication about the program with when our tax notices go out. So as folks are being asked to pay, the ones that might qualify also are learning that they might qualify. So great. Glad there's some folks in the community that this is helpful for. Other thoughts?
Thank you.
Oh, thanks for bringing it back. I know this was difficult to calculate, figure
thanks
out,
for your
but thank you.
flexibility.
Thanks,
All right.
Sam and Liz.
Thank you, Sam and Liz.
And I will say, I know Rachel Richards has pulled me aside and says, the city pays tax rebates for all their residents every year, offers it every year. And the
food
county
tax.
should, yeah.
That Sam Rose just cut back the senior amount you get.
So
With
that maybe
support
this
of
is
the
our way
council.
to be a little more equitable for those who need it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. I think we're pretty much done, except Patty reminded me, when are we going to discuss our Healthy Rivers Board appointment? Do we know? I don't know if that's on the agenda anywhere, and we haven't, Francie doesn't need to be here because she's recused.
It was on for open discussion, I want to say last week, and I think Charlotte had sent out a reminder with links to the interviews. We brought it up at one meeting a couple weeks ago, and I think we didn't have everyone. Francie cannot vote in this particular one, so we do have all the board members. And with the extra time, it is something if the
Okay.
board is prepared to talk about them.
Let's find out. Is the board prepared? Do you know who you wish to appoint, or do you need time to rethink or re-review?
If you could remind me right now, I would be able to probably make a decision today.
Let's see. I
I-
just
I watched
rebooted
Here's
my
mine.
computer.
Yeah, thank you.
We read the names, everyone, for us, please.
Health Rivers here. This is
And we have
existing.
Thomas Sherman,
There's one vacancy.
we have Matt Schmagowski, Rio Jacober, Sam Cox, and K.O. Ogilvy.
Okay.
I had a lot of yeses, and then I question marks.
Yeah.
I am supporting Sam Cox. I think Sam I was really blown away by his resume and his commitment to public service and his understanding of processes when it comes to that realm in the world. And I think he really understands our rivers and not just the structure, the infrastructure of the rivers and the uses of our rivers. And I think he would make a really wise participant on the Healthy Rivers and Stream Board.
All right. Aren't we choosing two?
No, we're just filling the vacancy for
One vacancy.
somebody who resigned.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought we were choosing two. That makes it hard.
I think Bill Yocums, but he's not up just yet. I think he might be retiring.
Soon, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in?
I
Are
could
you
go
ready?
along.
Are we not ready?
I could go along with Patty on that and I think there's several great choices. I
know,
really
it's
like them
tough.
all. But I'd be happy to go with Sam.
This email.
I think he's thorough and he's,
He's got a great attitude about him.
yeah. We'll bring him up to speed on the beavers.
Sam was not on my list. I was leaning towards Matt Schmagowski.
Schmagowski. I like Matt a lot. I know him personally. He's a great young man.
Or K.O. Ogilvy. who
good choices
has
all.
done a
And those
lot
were my
of
3.
water work. Jeffrey.
Yeah, that's my top 3 also.
So Sam was not in my
Well,
I met Sam through the Emma caucus meeting a couple weeks before, or I guess before the interview process. So I did get to spend some time, and I could further that nomination. So I
All
did meet
right.
with him outside
But
of the
let's
interview.
keep the others up
I
to
feel like Matt
speed
has
on-
applied for many things, and we just seem to
I know,
not
and
put him.
I just saw him because he's a friend of my kids. But I think we'll have another opening coming up, and if we could keep these others in the loop, that might be an opportunity.
Okay. All right. Our business on that is done.
So,
Anything else come up in the last? Sam Cox is our appointee. Any other business come up in the last
5 minutes?
5
No.
minutes? No?
I had one for Greg.
All right.
So I've been trying to get a message sign to work at RAFTA for, I don't know, 6 months. And so the more I talk about it, now both of them are out. So
stop.
So we're about to go into summer season,
they
and
don't
we
have 'em
don't
yet.
know when the buses arrive. At
And
our
this is at the
biggest
intercept
sort
lot?
of- Yeah.
You know, it's
So there's
funny.
Park and
zero,
ride.
there's zero, sorry, the Brush Creek intercept lot.
Right, yeah.
We have no messaging from RAFTA whatsoever in terms of arrivals or departures. So
You
How
sent a
thank you for the
message.
reminder
You
on that. I
sent,
did.
I watched him
Complaint.
send a
You know,
message last week.
yeah, so it's
I use the app now, and so it's easy for me to ignore those. But a lot of people still look at those signs.
Well,
and
I
when
tried to
show
buy
up,
a ticket yesterday at the airport, and the screen was broken.
That's frustrating, isn't it? For
They
the
let me ride the bus for free because I didn't have any cash on me.
So at the airport bus stop.
I called and let them know.
Yeah.
Can't you ride it free anyway? Because isn't that still the free route?
Well, I was going to Basalt.
Oh, you were going that way,
Yeah,
not this
I was
way.
going out of the free zone.
Going the wrong way.
Yeah, when my car was in the
So
shop. I
I'm,
had to
I'm
pick it
circling
up.
back on that. Thank you. Thanks
Okay.
for that.
We love RAFTA and always room to improve and encourage all of our visitors and residents to use it.
Okay.
Any other items? All right, with that, we will adjourn and resume next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Thank you all.